When Naomi Chen woke up at 3:17 in the morning, something felt wrong. She reached across the bed for Lewis Hamilton, the famous race car driver she loved. But the bed was empty, cold, like he'd been gone for hours. She heard a strange sound coming from somewhere in their home. A rhythmic thumping, over and over. Her heart started beating faster as she followed the noise through the dark hallway. The sound led her to Lewis's private gym. She pushed open the door and gasped at what she saw. Lewis was on the treadmill, running hard. His shirt was soaked with sweat. But that's not what made Naomi's breath catch in her throat. It was his face. Even in the dim light, she could see the tears streaming down his cheeks. He was crying while he ran, crying like his heart was breaking. Papers were scattered everywhere around the gym, workout logs covered in desperate handwriting. Notes that said things like, "Not fast enough," and "You're failing him." And one word circled over and over until the pen tore through the paper. Enough. When Lewis finally noticed her standing there, he looked terrified. Not tired, not embarrassed, terrified. "Lewis, what's happening?" Naomi whispered. He looked at her with eyes full of fear and pain. "I can't explain right now," he said, his voice shaking. "But I need you to trust me." Before she could say another word, his phone buzzed. Lewis looked at the message, and all the color drained from his face. Without explaining anything, he grabbed his keys and ran out the door. He left Naomi standing alone in the gym at 3 a.m., surrounded by evidence of his secret suffering. What was Lewis Hamilton hiding? Why was he training alone in the middle of the night, crying like his world was falling apart? And who was he so terrified of failing? The answer would change everything. Not just for Lewis and Naomi, but for thousands of people around the world who had stopped believing in their dreams. This is the true story of a promise, a race, and a love that refused to give up. Stay with us to discover what Lewis Hamilton's partner found that night and why his explanation left her in tears. Trust me, you need to hear this whole story to understand just how powerful one promise can be. Naomi Chen's eyes opened in the darkness. She wasn't sure what woke her. Maybe a sound. Maybe just that feeling you get when something isn't right. She reached across the silk sheets, expecting to feel Lewis's warmth beside her. The bed was empty and cold, though Naomi sat up, pushing her long black hair from her face. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed a harsh blue. 3:17 a.m. She listened carefully. The Monaco penthouse was usually silent at this hour, with only the distant whisper of the Mediterranean Sea far below. But tonight, she heard something. A rhythmic thumping. Faint, but steady. Her heart began to beat faster. Lewis had been disappearing a lot lately. Early mornings, late nights. He always had an explanation. Team meetings, sponsor calls, training sessions with Marcus. But something felt wrong. Something had felt wrong for weeks now. Naomi swung her legs out of bed and grabbed Lewis's oversized hoodie from the chair. She pulled it on over her pajamas and padded barefoot across the bedroom's cool marble floor. The thumping grew louder as she moved through the hallway. It was coming from his private gym. The gym Lewis had built when he first bought this place. The gym where he'd taught her how to box last summer, both of them laughing when she accidentally punched him in the nose. The gym where they'd dance to old soul music at midnight, champagne glasses in hand, celebrating his podium finish in Barcelona. Tonight, there was no music, no laughter, just that thumping. Over and over. Naomi's hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. Part of her wanted to turn around, crawl back into bed, pretend she'd never woken up. But she couldn't. Not anymore. Not after watching the man she loved slowly disappear into whatever secret he was keeping. She pushed the door open. The gym was almost completely dark. Only one small lamp in the corner cast a dim yellow glow across the space. It took Naomi's eyes a moment to adjust, but when they did, she gasped. Louis was on the treadmill, running hard. His shirt was soaked through with sweat, clinging to his muscular frame. His breath came in ragged gasps. The treadmill's belt pounded beneath his feet. That was the thumping she'd heard, but it wasn't the running that made her gasp. It was his face. Even in the dim light, even from across the room, Naomi could see the tear tracks on Louis's cheeks. His eyes were red and swollen. He'd been crying. He was still crying, tears streaming down his face as he ran, mixing with the sweat, dripping onto the treadmill belt. "Louis," she whispered. He didn't hear her over the machine's noise. Naomi's eyes swept the room, trying to understand what she was seeing. Workout equipment was scattered everywhere. Dumbbells, resistance bands, our yoga mats. But there was more. Papers. Dozens of papers covered every surface. She moved closer, her bare feet silent on the rubber gym flooring. The papers were workout logs, page after page of times, speeds, distances, numbers circled in red ink, notes scrawled in Louis's handwriting, some so frantic they were barely readable. Not fast enough. Try again. Focus. Focus. You're failing him. Failing him? Failing who? Naomi's hands shook as she picked up one of the pages. It was a training schedule, but unlike any she'd seen before, the exercises were strange, different. There were diagrams she didn't understand, sketches of what looked like car pedals with red X's drawn through them. "Louis!" she called louder. This time he heard her. His head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. He stumbled, grabbing the treadmill's handles to steady himself. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the dim room. Then Louis hit the stop button. The belt slowed. The thumping faded. The silence was worse. "Naomi," he breathed. His voice cracked on her name. You shouldn't be." She walked toward him, her heart breaking with every step. Up close, he looked terrible. Not just tired, exhausted, hollowed out. His eyes held a fear she'd never seen before, not even before his biggest races. "How long have you been in here?" she asked softly. Louis glanced at his watch, looked away quickly. "I don't know. A while." "Louis, it's after 3 in the morning." "I know." "Were you crying?" He wiped his face with his shirt, but it was pointless. The evidence was clear. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." Naomi's voice rose despite herself. "Yo, look at you! Look at this place!" She gestured at the papers scattered everywhere, the evidence of his secret suffering laid out like a crime scene. Louis stepped off the treadmill, his legs shaking slightly. He walked to the weight bench and sat down heavily, dropping his head into his hands. Naomi followed him. She knelt in front of him, trying to see his face, but he wouldn't look at her. "Baby, please," she whispered. "Talk to me. What's happening? Are you hurt? Is it the car? The team?" "It's not the team." "Then what? Because this..." She grabbed one of the papers, holding it up. "This isn't normal training. These notes, Louis. You're failing him?" "Who are you failing?" Louis's shoulders tensed. He finally looked up at her, and what Naomi saw in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't just fear. It was terror. Raw, a overwhelming terror. "I can't explain right now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can't or won't? Both. Neither. I don't..." He stood abruptly, walking away from her toward the windows. They overlooked Monaco's harbor, where yachts bobbed peacefully in the darkness. It's complicated. Then uncomplicated. Naomi stood too, frustration mixing with worry. Louis, I love you. Do you understand that? I love you. And I'm watching you destroy yourself, and I don't know why. I wake up alone. You miss breakfast. You space out during dinner. And now I find you here at 3 in the morning, crying and pushing yourself like what? His voice was sharp now, defensive. Like you're running out of time. The words hung in the air between them. Louis flinched, as if she'd slapped him. Are you sick? Naomi asked, her voice breaking. Louis, please, just tell me. Are you sick? No. Then what? What could possibly be so bad that you can't tell me? Louis turned back to face her. In the lamplight, his face looked older somehow, worn down. If I tell you, everything changes. You'll see me differently. I'll see you differently if you keep shutting me out, Naomi countered. She crossed the room to him, taking his hands in hers. They were rough, calloused from years of gripping steering wheels, but they were trembling. Whatever this is, we can face it together. Isn't that what you always say? That we're a team? For a moment, Naomi thought he might tell her. His mouth opened, his eyes softened. He squeezed her hands gently. Then his phone buzzed on the bench. They both looked at it. The screen lit up with a notification. Louis pulled away from her, walking over to check it. As he read whatever message had come through, all the color drained from his face. His jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists. No, he muttered. Not now, not yet. Louis, I have to go. He was already moving, grabbing a towel, wiping his face, heading for the door. What? Go where? It's 3 in the morning. I know, I'm sorry, He stopped in the doorway, his back to her. I need you to trust me, Naomi. Can you do that? Can you trust me for just a little bit longer? How much longer? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. He turned to look at her one last time. His eyes were pleading. Please, Naomi, just trust me. Before she could respond, before she could beg him to stay, before she could demand the truth, he was gone. She heard his footsteps echo through the penthouse, heard the front door open and close, heard the elevator ding as it carried him away. Naomi stood alone in the gym, surrounded by evidence of Louis's secret pain. She walked slowly to the bench where he'd been sitting. The papers were still scattered everywhere. She picked them up one by one, studying them in the lamplight. Training logs, medical diagrams, sketches of cars and equipment she didn't recognize. And then she saw it. One piece of paper, crumpled slightly, covered in Louis's handwriting. But this wasn't a training log. It was words, sentences, like he'd been trying to write something important. The paper started with, "To everyone I'll disappoint." But the rest was crossed out, scribbled over, torn through in places where Louis had pressed too hard with his pen. Naomi's hands shook as she set the paper down. She looked around the gym again, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't just a workout space anymore. It was something else, a place of suffering. A place where Louis came to face something he couldn't share. She walked to the treadmill where he'd been running and crying. Next to it, she found another stack of papers she'd missed before. These were different. They were printouts from websites about Formula One safety regulations, articles about racing injuries, research papers about athlete performance in different conditions. And underneath all of that, a single piece of paper with one word written over and over again. Enough, circled dozens of times until the pen had torn through the paper. Enough. 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 Naomi's vision blurred with tears. Why, she didn't understand what she was looking at, but she understood the emotion behind it. Desperation, fear, determination. Something was pushing Louis to his breaking point, something he felt he had to face alone. But why? What could be so terrible that he couldn't share it with her? She picked up the paper with "enough" written on it and held it against her chest. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn would come soon. Another day would start. Louis would probably text her with some excuse, some explanation that explained nothing. And Naomi would have to decide what to do. Keep pretending everything was fine? Or demand the truth, even if it meant losing him? She looked around the gym one last time, at the tear-stained treadmill, at the desperate notes, at the evidence of a man fighting a battle no one could see. "Mo, what are you running from, Louis?" she whispered to the empty room. "Or what are you running toward?" The room had no answer, only silence, and the faint sound of the Mediterranean waves far below, constant and unchanging, while everything else fell apart. Naomi turned off the lamp. In the darkness, she made herself a promise. She would find out the truth, whatever it took, whatever it cost. Because if Louis wouldn't save himself, someone had to, even if the truth destroyed them both. Naomi had never planned to fall in love with Louis Hamilton. She'd actually planned to dislike him. It was a warm September evening in Los Angeles, at the Ocean Conservation Gala. Naomi stood near the seafood table, sustainably sourced, of course, watching celebrities mingle and pretend to care about coral reefs. She'd come because her research needed funding, and galas like this were where the money lived. That's when she saw him. Louis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, fashion icon, the man whose face was on billboards from London to Tokyo. He was walking toward the stage, surrounded by people taking photos. He wore a perfectly tailored suit in deep ocean blue. Everyone wanted his attention. Everyone except Naomi. She'd done her research. Louis Hamilton talked about environmental issues, sure. He posted about going plant-based. He attended events like this one. But lots of wealthy people did that. It didn't mean they actually cared. The speeches began. A marine biologist talked about dying coral reefs. A filmmaker showed devastating footage of ocean plastic. Then, Louis took the microphone. "I've spent my life going fast," he said. "Racing cars that burn fuel, traveling the world on planes, living a lifestyle that takes more than it gives. For a long time, I didn't think about the cost. Then one day, I went diving in the Maldives, and I saw a reef that had died. Just gone. Bleached white. Like bones." Naomi found herself listening despite her skepticism. "I can't undo the damage I've done," Louis continued, "but I can use my platform to help. That's why I'm pledging $2 million tonight to ocean conservation research." The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Louis smiled, but Naomi noticed something. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, like he knew $2 million wasn't enough, could never be enough. After the speeches, Naomi found herself in line at the bar. She ordered sparkling water. She never drank at these events. Needed to stay sharp. Not a champagne person? She turned. Louis Hamilton stood beside her, closer than she'd expected. He was taller in person. His eyes were kind. "Not tonight," Naomi said. "Someone has to remember the actual point of this event." Louis raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "The ocean, not the photo opportunities." She hadn't meant to sound harsh, but the words came out that way anyway. Louis didn't look offended, though. He looked interested. You think I'm here for photo opportunities? He asked. Aren't you? I'm here because I made a promise to myself to do better, Lewis said quietly. But I'm curious, what would doing better actually look like? In your professional opinion? Naomi studied him. Was he mocking her? No. His expression was genuine. You really want to know? I really want to know. So she told him. Right there at the bar, Naomi explained her research on coral reef restoration. She talked about ocean acidification, rising temperatures, the complex ecosystems collapsing while people argued about politics. She probably talked too much, too passionately, too bluntly. Lewis listened to every word. Your foundation, Naomi said finally. You could fund research teams, real scientists, not just publicity projects. Long-term studies, not quick fixes. That would actually help. Would you lead one of those teams? Lewis asked. Naomi blinked. What? If I funded it, would you lead the research? You don't even know me. I know you care, Lewis said simply. That's more than most people here tonight, including me, probably. Naomi felt her defenses cracking. Why do you do that? Do what? Put yourself down. You just pledged $2 million. Money's easy, Lewis said. Real change is hard. You're doing the hard part. I'm just writing checks. That's when Naomi realized she'd been wrong about him. Completely wrong. They talked for another hour. Then, 2. The gala ended, and they moved their conversation outside, walking along the beach where the event had been held. Naomi took off her heels. Lewis rolled up his expensive suit pants. They walked barefoot in the sand, talking about everything: racing, science, pressure, purpose. Can I see you again? Lewis asked as the night ended. Why? Naomi challenged him. I'm not famous. I'm not glamorous. I'm a marine biologist who spends half her life underwater. Exactly, Lewis smiled. You're real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Their first date wasn't fancy. Lewis picked her up in a normal car, well, normal for him, a Tesla, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. They drove to a beach cleanup event in Santa Monica. For 3 hours, they picked up trash together. Plastic bottles, cigarette butts, tangled fishing line. Lewis didn't complain, didn't check his phone, didn't act like he was too important for this. This is the best first date I've ever had, he said, holding up a bag full of bottle caps. Really? Naomi laughed. Most guys try dinner and a movie. Most guys are boring, Lewis grinned. Besides, you're teaching me something important. That's better than any restaurant. The second date, Naomi returned the favor. She brought Lewis to her research lab and showed him her work. Coral samples growing in tanks. Data on ocean temperatures. The slow, patient work of trying to save an ecosystem most people never saw. Lewis asked questions, real questions, not polite ones. He wanted to understand photosynthesis in coral algae. He wanted to know about calcium carbonate structures. He listened like it mattered. You're different than I expected, Naomi admitted. Everyone says that, Lewis replied. They expect the person they see on TV, but that's just one part of me. What are the other parts? She asked. Lewis thought about it. Someone who's tired of always performing. Someone who wants to use the time he has left to actually matter. Someone who's scared he's wasted too much time already. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't Lewis Hamilton the champion. This was just Lewis, a man trying to figure out what came next. They fell in love quickly after that. Too quickly, Naomi's friends warned. But it didn't feel quick. It felt inevitable, like two people who'd been looking for each other finally meeting. Lewis taught Naomi about racing. Not the glamorous parts, the real parts, the G-forces that could make you pass out, the split-second decisions at 200 miles per hour, the loneliness of being inside a helmet, inside a car, inside yourself. Naomi taught Louis about patience, about how some things couldn't be rushed, how coral grew slowly, one tiny polyp at a time, how real change happened gradually, then all at once. 3 months after they met, Louis asked Naomi to move in with him, not to his Monaco penthouse, not yet, to his place in London first, to see if they really worked. They did. Their mornings started with coffee on the balcony, talking about their days ahead. Louis would explain telemetry data from practice sessions. Naomi would share her research findings. They spoke different languages, but understood each other perfectly. Evenings were quiet. Sometimes they cooked together, plant-based recipes they'd experiment with. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, Louis sketching design ideas while Naomi read research papers. "I've never had this," Louis said one night. "Had what?" Naomi looked up from her laptop. "Peace. Someone who sees me, not the image. Someone who doesn't want anything from me except me." Naomi closed her laptop and moved closer to him on the couch. "I see you, Louis, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere." He kissed her forehead. "Promise?" "Promise." 6 months into their relationship, Naomi moved to Monaco. The penthouse was beautiful, but too big, too empty, and they made it theirs. Naomi's research books lined the shelves. Her scuba equipment lived in the storage room. Louis's racing helmets shared space with her coral photographs. They talked about the future. Louis wanted to start a school for underprivileged kids interested in motorsport. Naomi wanted to lead an expedition to document reef recovery in the Indian Ocean. Maybe someday they'd have kids. Maybe they'd split their time between racing season and research season. Everything felt perfect, possible, right. But then small things started changing. It began with breakfast. Louis always made breakfast. Vegan pancakes, fruit, green juice. It was their ritual. But one morning in late November, Naomi came to the kitchen and found his coffee mug sitting on the counter. Still full. Stone cold. Louis was already gone. A text on her phone. "Early training session. Love you." Okay, she thought. Just a busy day. But then it happened again. And again. Louis started leaving earlier, coming home later. His phone would buzz during dinner, and he'd glance at it with an expression Naomi couldn't read. Worry? Fear? He'd quickly put it away and smile at her, but the smile felt forced. "Everything okay with the team?" she'd ask. "Everything's fine," he'd say. But everything wasn't fine. Naomi could feel it. The way Louis would space out during conversations, staring at nothing. The way his hands would clench when he thought she wasn't looking. The way he'd wake up in the middle of the night and just lie there, staring at the ceiling. "Bad dreams?" she'd whisper. "Something like that," he'd reply. But he wouldn't say more. Naomi tried to be patient, though Louis was under pressure. The season had been intense. Maybe he just needed space to decompress. She gave him that space, even though it hurt. But the distance grew, little by little, like watching ice form on a lake. Still water underneath, but something cold spreading across the surface. The last normal morning they had was 3 weeks ago. Louis made breakfast. They ate together on the balcony, watching the sun rise over Monaco's harbor. Everything felt right again. "I love you," Louis said suddenly. "You know that, right?" "Of course I know that," Naomi smiled. "I love you too." "No matter what happens," Louis continued, "remember that I love you, that this, us, It's the most real thing in my life." It was a strange thing to say. Naomi remembered feeling uneasy, but she'd pushed the feeling away. So she'd kissed him and told him to stop being so dramatic. Now, standing in his gym at 3 in the morning, surrounded by evidence of his secret suffering, Naomi wished she'd asked more questions, pushed harder, demanded to know why he sounded like he was saying goodbye. The coffee mug. The first warning sign she'd ignored. Cold and untouched at 7 in the morning, when Louis had already been gone for hours. Where had he been going? And why couldn't he tell her? Naomi didn't sleep after Louis left the gym. She couldn't. Her mind spun with questions that had no answers. By 7 in the morning, she'd made coffee she didn't drink and stared at her phone 100 times. No messages from Louis. Nothing. Like he'd disappeared into thin air. She picked up her phone and called the one person who might have answers. "Marcus, it's Naomi. I need to talk to you about Louis." Marcus Thompson had been Louis's trainer for 6 years. If anyone knew what was happening, it would be him. They met at a quiet cafe near the harbor. Marcus arrived in his usual workout gear, his face creased with concern the moment he saw Naomi's expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting across from her. "That's what I'm hoping you can tell me," Naomi said. She pulled out her phone and showed him photos she'd taken of the workout logs from the gym. "I found Louis training alone at 3 this morning. These papers were everywhere." "Marcus, what is this?" Marcus studied the photos, his frown deepening with each swipe. "This isn't his training plan." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I didn't write this. These exercises, these times, this isn't what we've been working on." Marcus looked up at her, worry clear in his eyes. "Naomi, when did you find these?" "Last night. Early this morning, I mean." He was on the treadmill, crying and pushing himself so hard. Then he got a message on his phone and just left. Wouldn't tell me anything. Marcus set the phone down carefully. "He's been canceling our regular sessions. Says he's training on his own now. Needs space to focus. I thought maybe he was just stressed about the season ending." But this," Marcus gestured to the phone. "This is dangerous. Training like this without supervision, without proper rest periods, Louis could seriously hurt himself. These aren't even racing-specific exercises. Some of this looks like rehabilitation work." Naomi's chest tightened. "Rehabilitation? Is he injured?" "Not that I know of. But I haven't seen him properly in 3 weeks." Marcus leaned forward. "Naomi, has he been different at home? Mood changes? Physical symptoms?" She thought about it. The exhaustion, the tears, the fear in his eyes. "He's been distant, disappearing. I thought maybe he was having an affair." The words hurt to say out loud, but they'd been living in the back of her mind for weeks. Marcus shook his head firmly. "No, that's not Louis. Whatever this is, it's not that." "Then what? What could make him act like this?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But I'm worried. Athletes sometimes spiral when they sense the end coming. The pressure, the fear of losing everything they've worked for, it can break people." Naomi felt cold despite the morning sun streaming through the cafe windows. "You think he's giving up racing?" "I think something's scaring him enough to tear himself apart," Marcus said quietly. "And that scares me." After leaving Marcus, Naomi knew she needed another perspective. She called Suki Yamamoto, her best friend since university. Suki was a sports journalist now, covering Formula One and other major racing series. If anyone understood the pressure Louis was under, it would be her. They met at Naomi's favorite beach, away from prying eyes and cameras. Suki arrived with coffees and concern written all over her face. "Tell me everything," Suki said. So Naomi did. The 3 a.m. training, the crying, the mysterious messages, the papers covered in desperate notes, the way Louis had looked at her, terrified and alone. Suki listened without interrupting, her journalist brain clearly processing every detail. When Naomi finished, Suki was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Mediterranean. "I've seen this before," Suki finally said. "Not with Louis, but with other athletes. When they know something's coming, an injury that won't heal, a contract that won't be renewed, age catching up. Some of them try to outrun it, train harder, push further, like if they just work hard enough, they can stop time." "But Louis isn't old," Naomi protested. "He's still competitive." "It's not always about age," Suki said gently. "Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of letting people down, fear of facing a future without the thing that's defined you your whole life." Naomi wrapped her arms around herself. "So, what do I do?" "You love him through it," Suki said. "And you don't let him face it alone, no matter how hard he pushes you away." Back at the penthouse, Naomi couldn't sit still. She wandered through the rooms, looking for more clues, anything that might explain what was happening to the man she loved. In Louis's office, she found his desk covered in papers, racing analytics, contract documents, sponsor agreements, all the business of being Lewis Hamilton. But underneath, she found something else: medical appointment reminders. Louis had circled dates on his calendar, appointments he'd never mentioned to her. There were printouts of research articles about Formula One safety regulations, pages highlighted in yellow, notes in the margins asking questions. How long? Is it enough? Can this work? What was he researching? What was he planning? Naomi opened his laptop. The password was her birthday, which made her heart ache, and found his browser history. More research, articles about racing safety, studies on reaction times, forums discussing equipment modifications, and then she saw the searches that made her blood run cold. How to tell someone bad news. Keeping promises under pressure. What happens when you fail someone who believes in you? Disappointment management. Naomi closed the laptop, her hands shaking. These weren't the searches of someone planning to retire. These were the searches of someone terrified of letting someone down. But who? She moved to Louis's closet, feeling guilty for invading his privacy, but desperate for answers. His clothes hung perfectly organized: race suits, designer outfits, casual wear. Everything in its place, everything controlled, except for one drawer that wouldn't close properly. Naomi opened it and found it stuffed with papers. More workout logs, more notes, but also letters. Dozens of letters, some opened, some still sealed. Fan mail, she realized. People writing to Louis about how he'd inspired them, changed their lives, given them hope. One letter was opened and had clearly been read many times. The paper was worn, creased from folding and unfolding. It was from a mother, thanking Louis for visiting her son in the hospital. "You gave him a reason to keep fighting," the letter said. "You showed him that heroes are real." Naomi's throat tightened. She put the letter back carefully and kept searching. At the bottom of the drawer, hidden under everything else, she found a small velvet box. Her heart stopped. She knew what it was before she opened it. An engagement ring. Beautiful, elegant, exactly her style. Louis had clearly spent time choosing it, thinking about what she'd like. Naomi should have felt joy, should have felt excited. But instead, she felt terror. Because the ring was here, hidden away. Not because Louis was waiting for the right moment to propose, but because... Why? What did it mean that he'd bought this ring but couldn't give it to her? Was he planning to propose before telling her some terrible truth? Was the ring another loose end to tie up? Another promise to keep before everything fell apart? She closed the box with trembling hands and put it back exactly where she'd found it. Louis couldn't know she'd seen it. Not yet. Not until she understood what was really happening. Naomi returned to the gym, standing in the doorway where she'd stood just hours ago. The papers were still scattered everywhere, the evidence of Louis's private war. She walked to the weight bench and sat down, trying to think like him. What would make Louis Hamilton, confident, accomplished, successful, break down crying at 3 a.m.? What would make him train until his body broke? What would make him too scared to tell the person he loved what was wrong? Her eyes fell on one paper she hadn't examined closely before. It was tucked under the bench, mostly hidden. She pulled it out and smoothed it flat. It was a letter, not a workout log. A letter Louis had started writing but never finished. To everyone I'll disappoint. I've spent my whole life trying to be enough. Fast enough, strong enough, brave enough, good enough. And I thought I was. I thought I'd proven it. Championships, records, everything I worked for. But now I'm facing something different. Something that matters more than any race. And I'm terrified I'm not... The rest was scribbled out, crossed through so violently the pen had torn the paper. But, in the margin, in smaller writing, Louis had written something else. What if I fail him? What if I'm not who he thinks I am? Him. Not them. Not her. Him. Someone specific. Someone Louis felt responsible for. Someone he was terrified of disappointing. Naomi stared at those words until they blurred. Who was Louis trying to be enough for? Who mattered so much that failing them would break him? She pulled out her phone and texted Suki. Can you look into Louis's recent charity work? Anyone he's been spending time with? Kids, maybe? Someone important? The response came quickly. On it. Why? I think someone's depending on him, Naomi typed back. And I think that's what's tearing him apart. She stood up, looking around the gym one more time. The treadmill where Louis had run until he cried. The weights he'd lifted until his hands shook. The papers covered in desperate attempts to be enough. Who are you trying to save, Louis? Naomi whispered to the empty room. And why can't you let me help you? Her phone buzzed. A text from Louis. I'm sorry about last night. Need to handle some things. Home tomorrow. I love you. Naomi read the message 3 times. It said everything and nothing. An apology without explanation. A promise without details. Love without trust. She typed back, I love you too. We need to talk. 3 dots appeared, showing Louis was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Then disappeared for good. No response came. Naomi sat back down on the bench, surrounded by evidence of Louis's suffering, holding the knowledge of a hidden engagement ring and a letter to someone he feared disappointing. Tomorrow, Louis would come home. And tomorrow, Naomi would demand the truth, even if the truth destroyed them both. Because loving someone meant facing the darkness with them, not standing outside it, helpless and afraid. And Naomi Chen wasn't helpless. She was a scientist. She solved problems. She found answers. She would find this one too, no matter what it cost. Louis came home the next evening just as the sun was setting over Monaco. Naomi heard his key in the lock and felt her stomach drop. She'd spent the entire day preparing for this conversation, rehearsing what she'd say, promising herself she'd stay calm. But when Louis walked through the door, all her careful plans evaporated. He looked terrible. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. His shoulders slumped like he was carrying something impossibly heavy. He saw her sitting on the couch and tried to smile, but it came out wrong, broken. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." Naomi's voice sounded steadier than she felt. Louis set down his bag and walked toward her slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. "Naomi, about last night." "Sit down, Louis." Something in her tone made him stop. His eyes widened slightly. He'd heard that voice before, the one she used when she was done being patient, when she needed truth, not excuses. He sat in the chair across from her, not beside her on the couch. The distance felt like a canyon. "I know you've been struggling," Naomi began. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "I know something's wrong. No, and I know you're trying to protect me from whatever it is. But Louis, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you destroy yourself and not know why." Louis opened his mouth to speak, but Naomi raised her hand. "I'm not finished. I talked to Marcus yesterday. He's worried about you. He says the training you're doing isn't on any plan he wrote. He says you could hurt yourself." She paused, taking a breath. "I also went through your office. I'm sorry, but I was desperate. I found the medical appointments you haven't told me about, the research articles on safety regulations, the browser history about disappointing people." Louis's face went pale. "Naomi." "And I found the ring, Louis. The engagement ring hidden in your drawer." His eyes closed. A muscle in his jaw twitched. "So here's what I need to know," Naomi continued, her voice starting to shake despite her best efforts. "Are you sick? Is something wrong with your health?" "No." Louis's voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm not sick." "Then what? Are you planning to quit racing?" "It's not about racing." "Then what is it about?" Naomi stood up, unable to sit still anymore. "Because, from where I'm standing, it looks like you're preparing for something terrible. You're training like a man running out of time. You're crying alone at 3 in the morning. You bought me a ring but can't give it to me. Louis, what am I supposed to think?" Louis stood too, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "I don't know what to tell you. Tell me the truth. The truth is complicated." "Then uncomplicate it." Naomi's voice rose. She was tired of being patient, tired of understanding. "I love you." Doesn't that mean anything? Doesn't that mean you can trust me with whatever this is?" Louis walked to the window, staring out at the Mediterranean. The sunset painted everything gold and orange, beautiful and fleeting. He stood there so long that Naomi thought he might not answer at all. Then, quietly, "If I tell you, everything changes. You'll see me differently." "How?" Naomi moved closer, though she didn't touch him. "How will I see you differently?" "You think I'm brave," Louis said, still not looking at her. "You think I'm strong, confident, someone who faces challenges and wins." He finally turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his eyes nearly broke her. "But what if I'm not? What if I'm just someone who's terrified of failing, of not being enough?" "Everyone has doubts, Louis. And that doesn't make you—" "This is different." His voice cracked. "This isn't about winning races or setting records. This is about someone who needs me. Someone who believes I'm something I might not be. And if I fail, if I can't do what I promised—" He looked away again. "I don't think I could live with that." Naomi's heart raced. "Who needs you? Who did you make a promise to?" Louis was silent. "Louis, answer me, please." "I can't. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because—" Lewis's voice rose in frustration. Because what if I tell you and you try to help and I still fail? Then I've dragged you into it, made you part of my failure. I can't do that to you. That's not your choice to make, Naomi shot back. We're supposed to be partners, Lewis. Partners share burdens. Partners face things together. Not this, Lewis said firmly. Not when the stakes are this high. They stared at each other across the living room. The sunset was fading now, shadows creeping across the floor between them. Is someone in danger? Naomi asked. Is that what this is? Someone's life depends on you? Lewis's expression flickered. Not quite agreement, but not denial either. Oh my God, Naomi breathed. That's it, isn't it? Someone's life. It's not that simple, Lewis interrupted. It's not life or death. It's about hope, about purpose, about being the person someone needs you to be. Then let me help you be that person. You can't help with this. How do you know if you won't tell me what it is? Lewis walked past her, heading toward the kitchen. He poured himself water with shaking hands. Naomi followed, refusing to let him escape this conversation. I saw the letter you started writing, she said. To everyone, I'll disappoint. Lewis, you're not going to disappoint anyone. You don't know that. I know you. I know you don't give up. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. Whatever this promise is, whatever you're trying to do. It's not about working hard. Lewis slammed the glass down on the counter. Water sloshed over the sides. Don't you understand? I've been working hard. I've been training every day, pushing myself until I break. And I'm still not good enough. I'm still failing. Failing at what? Lewis's hands gripped the counter edge. His knuckles went white. For a moment, Naomi thought he might finally tell her. Then his phone rang. They both looked at it sitting on the counter. The screen showed a name, Mercedes Team Principal. Don't answer it, Naomi said. I have to. Lewis, we're in the middle of... He picked up the phone. Hello? Yes. When? Now? He glanced at Naomi, and she saw genuine regret in his eyes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. You're leaving, Naomi said flatly. There's an emergency team meeting. Something about next season's car development. I have to go. No, you don't. You choose to go. Naomi, please don't make this harder than it already is. Harder for who? Naomi felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I'm trying to help you, and you keep pushing me away. What am I supposed to do, Lewis? Just sit here and watch you suffer? Lewis grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. After the next race, he said, I promise, Naomi. After the next race at Silverstone, I'll explain everything. I'll tell you what this is all about. But right now, I can't. I'm not ready. When will you be ready? I don't know. The desperation in his voice was raw. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. But after Silverstone, ready or not, I'll tell you. That's the best I can offer right now. He walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back, crossed the room in 3 quick strides and pulled Naomi into his arms. She resisted at first, angry and hurt. But then she felt how tightly he was holding her, like he was drowning and she was the only solid thing in the world. I love you, he whispered into her hair. God, Naomi, I love you so much. More than racing, more than anything. You have to believe that. Then trust me, she whispered back. I do trust you. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Lewis pulled back just enough to look at her face. He cupped her cheeks in his hands, and she saw tears in his eyes. It's about being worthy of that trust, he said. And right now, I don't know if I am. Before she could respond, before she could tell him he was worthy of everything good in this world, he kissed her forehead and let go. "After Silverstone," he repeated, "I promise." Then he was gone. Naomi stood in the middle of their living room as darkness filled the penthouse. She didn't turn on the lights, just stood there, replaying the conversation in her head. Someone who needs me. Someone who believes I'm something I might not be. A promise he was terrified of breaking. Training that wasn't about racing. Medical appointments and safety research and desperate 3 a.m. sessions. See, her phone buzzed. A text from Suki. "Found something. Call me." Naomi's hands trembled as she dialed. "I did some digging," Suki said without preamble. "Lewis has been making regular visits to a small town outside London, every 2 weeks for the past 6 months. I couldn't find out exactly where or why, but my source says it's personal, not professional." A small town? For what? That's what I can't figure out. But Naomi? Whatever it is, he's keeping it completely off the record. No publicity, no photographers, no team members, just him, disappearing for a few hours, then coming back. Naomi's mind raced. "Can you find out more? An address? A name?" "I'm working on it, but it's going to take time." "I don't have time, Suki. Silverstone is this weekend. He promised to tell me everything after the race." "Then maybe you should wait," Suki said gently. "Let him tell you on his terms." But Naomi couldn't wait. Not anymore. Not after seeing Lewis break down. Not after hearing the terror in his voice. After hanging up with Suki, Naomi made a decision. She walked back to the gym and gathered up all the papers Lewis had left scattered around. The workout logs, the desperate notes, the unfinished letters. She spread them across the dining table and studied them like data points in a research project. There had to be a pattern, had to be some clue she was missing. That's when she saw it. On one of the workout logs, in the corner, Lewis had written a phone number, then crossed it out. But the impression remained, visible when she held the paper up to the light. Naomi grabbed her phone and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a woman's voice answered, "Hello?" "Hi," Naomi said, her mouth suddenly dry. I found this number in my partner's things, Lewis Hamilton. Do you know him?" There was a long pause. "Yes," the woman said softly. "I know Lewis. Is he all right? Is something wrong?" "I don't know," Naomi admitted. "That's what I'm trying to find out. Can you tell me, why does Lewis have your number? How do you know him?" Another pause. Then, "Are you Naomi?" "Yes." "Lewis talks about you, says you're a scientist, says you understand things." "I'm trying to understand this," Naomi said desperately. "Please, Lewis is hurting and he won't tell me why. If you know something—" "Lewis has been visiting my son," the woman said. "For 6 months now? My son, Tyler." Naomi's heart pounded. "Why? What's wrong with Tyler?" The woman's voice cracked slightly. "Tyler was in an accident. He can't walk anymore. He was so depressed, so lost. But then he discovered Lewis, started watching races, started dreaming again. He's been giving Tyler hope." "But why the secret training? Why is Lewis pushing himself so hard?" "Because," the woman said, and Naomi could hear her smiling through tears. "Lewis made Tyler a promise, and keeping that promise is the hardest thing Lewis has ever done." "What promise?" Naomi whispered. But before the woman could answer, Naomi heard Lewis's voice in the background on the other end of the line. He'd just arrived. He was there, at this woman's house, right now. "I have to go," the woman said quickly. "But if you love him, come to Silverstone. Watch the race. Everything will make sense after. I promise." The line went dead. Naomi sat in the darkness of the penthouse, the phone still pressed to her ear. Tyler. A boy in a wheelchair. A promise Lewis made. Training that had nothing to do with racing championships. Tears that came from fear of failing someone who needed him. Suddenly, pieces started clicking into place, but the full picture was still blurry, just out of reach. Naomi looked at the calendar on her phone. 3 days until Silverstone. 3 days until Lewis would either keep his promise or break under the weight of it. And 3 days until Naomi would finally understand what was worth tearing the man she loved apart. The flight to London felt endless. Naomi sat in her seat, staring out the window at clouds that looked like cotton stretched thin. But she hadn't told Lewis she was coming to Silverstone. After the phone call with Tyler's mother, Sarah, she'd learned her name was Sarah Winters, Naomi knew she needed to see this for herself. She'd tried calling Lewis twice. Both times, he'd texted back instead of answering, "In meetings. Love you. See you after the race." Always after the race. Everything was always after the race. The plane landed at Heathrow on Friday morning, qualifying day. Naomi took a taxi straight to the circuit, her media pass, arranged quickly through Suki's connections, clutched in her hand. Silverstone was massive. Thousands of fans wearing team colors, waving flags, the smell of racing fuel and fried food mixing in the summer air. The roar of engines screamed across the track as practice sessions ran. Naomi made her way to the Mercedes garage, her stomach twisting with nerves. Would Lewis be angry she'd come without telling him? Would he see it as support or invasion? The garage was organized chaos. Mechanics worked on the cars with precise urgency. Engineers studied data screens. Team members rushed between stations with equipment and clipboards. And there was Lewis, sitting in his race suit, talking with his race engineer. Even from across the garage, Naomi could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands kept clenching and unclenching. Their eyes met. Lewis froze mid-sentence. Confusion crossed his face, then surprise, then something that looked like panic. He excused himself and walked quickly toward her, pulling her aside into a quieter corner. "Naomi, what are you doing here?" His voice was low, urgent. "I came to support you," she said simply. You should have told me." "You've been avoiding my calls." Lewis ran his hand over his braids. "It's not a good time. Qualifying is in 2 hours, and I need to focus." "I know about Tyler," Naomi said quietly. Lewis went completely still. "What?" "I called the number on your workout log. I spoke to Sarah. She told me about her son, about the accident, about the promise you made." For a moment, Lewis just stared at her. Then his shoulders sagged, all the fight draining out of him. He looked around to make sure no one was listening, then pulled her further away from the garage into a small equipment room. "How much did she tell you?" he asked. "Not everything. Just that Tyler was hurt, that he can't walk, that you've been visiting him, and you made him a promise." Naomi touched his arm gently. "Lewis, why didn't you just tell me?" "Because I didn't know how," Lewis said, his voice rough. "How do I explain that I'm terrified of letting down an 11-year-old kid? That I lie awake at night wondering if I've bitten off more than I can chew? That every time I train and it doesn't go right, I feel like I'm failing someone who's already lost everything?" "By trusting that I'd understand," Naomi said softly. "By letting me help." Lewis shook his head. "You can't help with this. No one can. It's something I have to do myself." "Why? What exactly did you promise him?" Before Lewis could answer, someone called his name from the garage. Time for final pre-qualifying preparations. "I have to go," Lewis said. "Stay in the garage during qualifying. We'll talk after. I promise, Naomi." "After this weekend?" I'll explain everything." He kissed her quickly and was gone, jogging back toward his car. Naomi stood there, watching him disappear into the controlled chaos of race preparation. She'd come all this way and still had more questions than answers. She found a spot in the garage where she could watch without being in the way. The team members eyed her curiously. Lewis's partner didn't usually come to races unannounced, but no one said anything. During a brief lull, Naomi noticed a woman standing near her. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back, wearing a Mercedes team guest pass. She was watching Lewis with an intensity that seemed almost maternal. "You must be Naomi," the woman said, turning to her with a warm smile. "Yes. Have we met?" "Not officially. I'm Elena. My husband is Lewis's teammate." She gestured toward the other Mercedes car. "Lewis talks about you constantly. It's nice to finally meet you." They shook hands. Elena seemed genuinely kind, not just making polite conversation. "Exciting day," Elena said, watching the mechanics work. "Qualifying at Silverstone is always intense." "I can imagine," Naomi replied, though her mind was elsewhere. "You know," Elena said thoughtfully, "about a month ago, I was in the team hospitality area when Lewis was talking with Marcus. They didn't know I was there. Lewis was asking about training protocols for older drivers, specifically drivers who needed to adapt to different physical conditions." Naomi's attention snapped fully to Elena. "What kind of conditions?" "I couldn't hear all of it, but Marcus seemed confused. He kept saying Lewis was still in his prime, still performing at the highest level. But why worry about adaptation?" Elena paused. "Lewis said something about needing to understand what it's like to drive without certain capabilities. Marcus asked if he was injured. Lewis said no, he was preparing for something important. More important than racing." More important than racing. Those words echoed in Naomi's head. "Did you hear anything else?" Naomi asked. "Just Lewis saying he'd made a promise to someone, that he couldn't let them down. He sounded—" Elena searched for the word. "Desperate. Like keeping this promise was the most important thing in the world." Before Naomi could ask more questions, the announcement came through. Cars to the grid for qualifying. The garage exploded into activity. Naomi pressed herself against the wall as the team swarmed Lewis's car. Lewis climbed in, his helmet already on, visor down. She couldn't see his face anymore, couldn't read his expression, but she could see his hands on the steering wheel. They were shaking. Qualifying was intense. Naomi watched on the monitors as Lewis pushed his car to the limit, flying through corners at speeds that made her heart race. He was fast, aggressive, but something seemed off. His lines weren't quite perfect, his braking points slightly late. "He's distracted," she heard an engineer mutter. "Not focused." Lewis qualified third. Good, but not great. Not what he usually achieved at his home race. When he came back to the garage, he pulled off his helmet and immediately looked for Naomi. Their eyes met across the garage. He looked exhausted. But there was no time to talk. Media obligations, team debriefs, analysis sessions. Naomi watched Lewis get pulled in a dozen different directions, always professional, always composed on the outside. But she could see the cracks now. The way his smile didn't reach his eyes, the way he kept checking his phone, the way his hands still shook slightly when he thought no one was looking. Hours later, after the garage had finally quieted, Lewis found Naomi in the hospitality area. He sat down heavily beside her, his body sagging with exhaustion. "Long day," he said. "You were fast out there," Naomi replied. "Not fast enough." He rubbed his face. "My head wasn't in it. Too much thinking. Too much worrying." "About tomorrow?" "About everything." Louis looked at her. "I'm glad you're here, even though I wish you'd stayed in Monaco where it's safe and quiet, and you didn't have to see me like this." "Like what?" "Falling apart." Naomi took his hand. "You're not falling apart. You're under pressure. There's a difference." "Is there?" Louis laughed, but it was hollow. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels pretty similar." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun set through the large windows. The track outside was empty now, peaceful. "I overheard some engineers earlier," Naomi said carefully. "They mentioned you asked Marcus about training for drivers with different physical capabilities. Louis, what are you training for?" Louis was quiet for so long that Naomi thought he wouldn't answer. Then, softly, "For tomorrow, after the race. There's someone you need to meet." "Tyler?" Louis nodded. "And when you meet him, everything will make sense. The training, the crying, the fear, all of it. Can't you just tell me now?" "I could," Louis said, "but you need to see it. You need to meet Tyler and understand what this means. What's at stake?" He squeezed her hand. "One more day, Naomi. I know I keep saying that. I know I keep asking you to wait. But one more day, and you'll understand everything. I promise." Naomi wanted to push, wanted to demand answers right now. But looking at Louis's exhausted face, the fear still lurking in his eyes, she knew he was barely holding himself together. So she just nodded. One more day. Race day Sunday arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, warm sun, perfect conditions for racing. Naomi stood in the garage again, watching the pre-race preparations with new eyes. Now she knew there was something beyond this race, something that mattered more to Louis than the championship, the points, the glory. But what? Just before the driver's parade, Naomi saw something that made her breath catch. Standing at the edge of the garage, partially hidden behind a support beam, was a woman with kind eyes and a tired face. Next to her, in a wheelchair, sat a young boy wearing a Lewis Hamilton jersey. Tyler. It had to be Tyler. The boy was watching Louis with such pure admiration, such complete faith, that it made Naomi's chest ache. This was what Louis had been carrying. This weight of being someone's hero, someone's hope. Louis saw them too. He walked over, and Naomi watched as his entire demeanor changed. The tension melted away. He knelt beside Tyler's wheelchair, and they talked quietly. Tyler was laughing at something Louis said. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. See, then Louis pointed toward Naomi. Tyler's eyes followed, and he waved shyly. Naomi waved back, her throat tight with emotion. Louis stood, said something else to Tyler that made the boy's face light up, then jogged toward his car. But before climbing in, he looked back at Tyler one more time. The expression on Louis's face was pure determination. Not the determination of a racer chasing victory. The determination of someone who wouldn't, let down the person who believed in him. The race itself was brutal. Naomi barely breathed watching it unfold on the screens. Louis started third, but fought his way forward, overtaking with aggressive moves that had the crowd roaring. He defended his position desperately, wheel to wheel with competitors, refusing to yield. By lap 40, he was leading. The home crowd went wild. But Naomi glanced at Tyler. The boy was gripping his armrests so tightly his knuckles were white, his eyes glued to the screen showing Louis's car. "Come on, Louis," Tyler whispered. "You can do it. I know you can." The final laps were agonizing. Lewis held his lead, but barely. The car behind him pushed hard, looking for any opportunity to pass. Last lap, last corner. Lewis came through, crossing the line first. The garage erupted in celebration. Mechanics jumped and hugged each other. Engineers pumped their fists. The crowd's roar was deafening. But Naomi wasn't watching the celebration. She was watching Tyler. The boy had tears streaming down his face. Not sad tears. Joy. Pure, overwhelming joy. Sarah was crying too, holding her son as he sobbed and laughed at the same time. "He did it," Tyler kept saying. "He really did it. He won for me." "Hey, he won!" Lewis's voice came through the radio. "That one was for Tyler. All for Tyler." When Lewis finally made it back to the garage after the podium celebration, still covered in champagne, the first person he went to wasn't his team principal or his engineers. It was Tyler. Lewis knelt beside the wheelchair again, and Tyler threw his arms around him. They held each other while cameras flashed and the team cheered, but Naomi could see they were in their own world. A world where a promise had been made and kept, where hope had been given and returned. After the celebrations died down, after the media interviews and team photos, Lewis finally came to Naomi. He was still in his race suit, his face flushed with victory and emotion. "Come with me," he said, taking her hand. "It's time. Time to tell you everything." He led her out of the garage, away from the chaos, Sarah and Tyler following behind. They walked to a quiet area behind the paddock, where a small trailer had been set up away from prying eyes. Inside, Naomi saw something that made her stop in her tracks. 2 racing simulators. But these weren't normal racing rigs. They'd been modified, adapted. The pedals were gone, replaced with hand controls mounted on the steering wheel. "Lewis!" Naomi breathed. "What is this?" Lewis looked at Tyler, then back at Naomi. His eyes were shining with unshed tears. "This," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "is what I've been training for. This is the promise I made. This is what's been tearing me apart." Tyler wheeled himself forward, his face eager and excited. "Lewis promised we'd race together, Naomi. Really race. Not just play video games. A real race, on a real track, with real cars adapted so I can drive too." Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." "The 3 a.m. training sessions," Lewis said. "I've been learning to drive with only hand controls. No feet, no pedals. Trying to understand what Tyler experiences. Trying to prove to him that wheelchairs don't stop dreams." His voice cracked. "But it's so hard, Naomi. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And every time I fail, every time I can't get it right, I think about Tyler. About disappointing him. About being one more person who made him a promise they couldn't keep." Naomi looked at Tyler, at Sarah, at Lewis. Finally, she understood. The crying, the fear, the desperate training, the medical appointments, the safety research. It was all for this. For a promise to a boy who'd lost everything. A promise to show him that being different didn't mean being less. That dreams could survive even when your body changed. "When?" Naomi whispered. "When is this race?" Lewis and Sarah exchanged a look. "Next month," Sarah said. "The first ever adaptive motorsport exhibition. Tyler and Lewis will race together, side by side, using the same equipment. Proving it can be done." Naomi walked to Lewis and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tight, and she felt him shaking. "You idiot," she whispered into his shoulder. "You beautiful, ridiculous idiot. This is what you've been carrying alone? This incredible, wonderful thing?" "I was so scared," Louis admitted, so scared of failing him. "You won't fail him," Naomi said fiercely. "You can't fail someone by trying, by showing up, by caring enough to cry at 3 a.m. She pulled back to look at his face. "Don't you see? You've already kept your promise. Just by trying. Just by making Tyler believe in himself again." Tyler wheeled closer. "Louis said you're a scientist, that you study things carefully and don't give up until you find answers." "That's right," Naomi said, kneeling beside him. "Then you understand," Tyler said simply. "Louis didn't give up on me, even when it was hard, even when he was scared. He kept trying. That's what scientists do, right? They keep trying." Naomi looked up at Louis, tears flowing freely now. "Yes," she said, "that's exactly what we do." And finally, she saw Louis smile. A real smile. The weight he'd been carrying alone was now shared. The secret that had been eating him alive was out in the open. He wasn't alone anymore, and none of them were. The celebration at Silverstone eventually wound down. Louis had obligations, sponsor appearances, team dinners, media commitments that couldn't be avoided. But he promised Naomi they'd meet at Sarah's home the next morning. "I want you to really know Tyler," Louis had said. "Not just meet him, know him." That night in their hotel room, Louis finally slept peacefully. No nightmares, no waking at 3 a.m. He held Naomi close, and for the first time in months, his breathing was steady and calm. The next morning, they drove to a small village outside London. The countryside was beautiful. Rolling green hills, stone cottages, flowers blooming in gardens. It seemed impossible that so much pain and hope could exist in such a peaceful place. Sarah's home was modest, so a 2-story cottage with a blue door and a ramp leading to the entrance. As they pulled up, Naomi saw Tyler sitting by the window, his face pressed against the glass. When he spotted Louis's car, he disappeared from view. By the time they reached the door, Tyler had wheeled himself there, throwing it open with a huge grin. "Louis, you came. I mean, I knew you'd come, but you came." Louis laughed, kneeling to Tyler's level. "Of course I came. I promised, didn't I?" "You always keep your promises," Tyler said seriously. Then he looked at Naomi. "You're Naomi, the scientist. Louis talks about you all the time." "Only good things, I hope," Naomi smiled. "The best things," Tyler said. "He says you're smarter than him, and braver, and that you study ocean stuff to save the world." "I try," Naomi said, already charmed by this boy. Sarah appeared behind Tyler, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Come in. I've made tea, and Tyler's been baking all morning." Inside, the house was warm and lived in. Photos covered the walls, Tyler as a baby, as a toddler, playing football. And then the photos changed. A hospital room, Tyler in a wheelchair. But in the newer photos, Tyler was smiling again, and in several of them, Louis was there beside him. They settled in the living room. Tyler wheeled himself to a spot between Louis and Naomi on the couch, clearly excited to have both of them there. "Mom made biscuits," Tyler announced. "I helped." "Well, I mostly ate the dough, but I helped a bit." Sarah brought in a tray of tea and cookies. "Biscuits," Naomi reminded herself. They looked slightly burnt on the edges, but Tyler watched them anxiously, and hoping everyone would like them. Naomi took one. "These are delicious," she said honestly. They were sweet and buttery, made with love if not perfect skill. Tyler beamed. Over tea, Sarah told their story. Naomi listened quietly, her heart breaking with every word. "It happened 18 months ago," Sarah said, her voice steady but sad. "A Tuesday afternoon. We were driving home from Tyler's football practice. He'd scored 2 goals that day. He was so excited, talking non-stop about the game. Tyler looked down at his lap, but he didn't interrupt his mother. The drunk driver ran a red light, Sarah continued, T-boned us on the passenger side, where my husband was sitting, where Tyler was in the back. She paused, gathering strength. James, my husband, he died at the scene. Tyler survived, but his spine was damaged, and the doctor said he'd never walk again. Mom, don't cry, Tyler said softly, reaching for her hand. It's okay. But Sarah's tears fell anyway. Tyler stopped talking after the accident. For 3 months, he didn't speak. Not a word. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't engage with the physical therapists. He just gave up. He was only 10 years old, and he'd already given up on life. Naomi's throat tightened. She glanced at Louis, who was watching Tyler with such tenderness it made her chest ache. Then one day, Sarah said, smiling through tears, a nurse put on the television. Formula One was on. Tyler had never watched racing before, but something about it caught his attention. He watched Louis drive, watched him battle for position. I watched him never give up even when things looked impossible. You were fighting Verstappen for the lead, Tyler said, looking at Louis. You were in 3rd place with 5 laps to go, and everyone thought you'd lost. But you didn't give up. You passed both of them in the last 3 laps. You remember that race? Louis asked softly. I remember every race, Tyler said. That day, after watching you win, I said my first words in 3 months. I told Mom, he didn't give up. Maybe I shouldn't either. Naomi had to look away, blinking back tears. Tyler started talking again after that, Sarah said. Started eating, started working with his therapists, all because of Formula One, all because of Louis. He watched every race, read everything about racing, drew pictures of cars. He even started designing his own cars, adaptations for drivers who couldn't use pedals. Tyler wheeled over to a desk and came back with a notebook. Want to see? He opened it, and Naomi gasped. The pages were filled with detailed drawings, cars with hand controls, steering wheels with brake and accelerator buttons, adaptive seats and harnesses. For a kid, the designs were remarkably sophisticated. These are incredible, Tyler, Naomi said, studying the drawings carefully. Have you shown these to anyone? I showed Louis, Tyler said proudly. Louis nodded. That's when I knew. Tyler wasn't just dreaming about racing. He was engineering solutions. He was thinking like a real driver, figuring out how to make it work despite the obstacles. So I wrote to Louis's foundation, Sarah explained. I didn't expect anything. Maybe a form letter? Oh, if we were lucky. But Louis responded personally. He said he wanted to visit. I thought it would be a one-time thing, Louis admitted. A photo opportunity, something nice for Tyler. But then I met him, and he asked me something I couldn't forget. What did he ask? Naomi said. Tyler answered, I asked if he thought I could still do brave things, even from a wheelchair. The room went quiet. What did you say? Naomi asked Louis. I told him yes, Louis said, his voice rough with emotion. I told him that bravery has nothing to do with legs, that some of the bravest people I know face challenges every single day that would break most people. And then Tyler asked me something else. Tyler picked up the story. I asked if he'd prove it, if he'd show me that wheelchairs don't stop dreams, that I could still be brave, still be fast, or still be someone who matters. So I made him a promise, Louis said. I promised that we'd race together, not just on a video game, not just pretend, a real race, on a real track, side by side. Both of us using the same equipment, hand controls only. I'd learn to drive his way, And together, we'd prove that being different doesn't mean being less. Naomi understood now, completely. The 3 a.m. training sessions weren't just about learning hand controls. They were about understanding Tyler's world, about walking, or rather, driving, in his shoes, about proving through personal struggle that this was possible. But it's been so hard, Louis admitted, looking at his hands. I've been racing with foot pedals my entire life. My muscle memory fights me constantly. My feet search for pedals that aren't there. I have to completely rewire everything I know about driving. And some nights, I can't get it right. I train for hours and still can't match my times with hand controls. That's when I break down. That's when I cry. Because I'm terrified I've promised Tyler something I can't deliver. Tyler reached over and took Louis's hand. But you didn't give up. Even when it was hard. Even when you were scared. That's the promise, Louis. Not being perfect. Not being the fastest. The promise is not giving up. Louis looked at this 11-year-old boy who somehow understood more about courage than most adults ever would. Tears spilled down his cheeks. When I watch you train, Tyler continued, when I see you struggling with the hand controls and getting frustrated and trying again anyway, that's when I feel brave too. Because if Lewis Hamilton can struggle and keep trying, then so can I. Oh, Tyler, Louis whispered, pulling the boy into a hug. Naomi watched them, her own tears falling freely. This was what Louis had been protecting. Not some terrible secret, not some shameful truth, but something so beautiful, so pure, that he was terrified of breaking it. Sarah wiped her eyes and stood. Tyler, why don't you show Naomi your car? The one you designed for the race? Tyler's face lit up immediately. Yes, come on, Naomi, it's in the garage. He wheeled toward the back door and Naomi followed. Louis started to come too, but Sarah touched his arm gently. Let them talk, she said. Tyler's been wanting to meet her. In the garage, covered with a sheet, sat something about 3 feet long. Tyler wheeled up to it with obvious pride. Ready? He asked. Naomi nodded. Tyler pulled off the sheet with a flourish, revealing a remote-controlled Formula One car. But this wasn't a toy. It was a detailed, sophisticated machine. Sleek bodywork painted in Mercedes silver and Lewis's number 44. And mounted on the steering wheel were hand controls, miniature versions of what a full-size adapted race car would have. I designed it myself, Tyler said. Well, Louis helped with some of the technical stuff, and a company that makes adaptive equipment helped build it. But the design is mine. Every bit of it. Tyler, this is amazing, Naomi said, kneeling to examine it closer. These controls, they're perfectly positioned. The balance looks right. You've really thought about weight distribution. That's important for handling, Tyler explained, warming to the subject. And see this? He pointed to the steering mechanism. The hand controls have to be sensitive enough for precise movements, but not so sensitive that tiny bumps make you crash. It took 17 prototypes to get it right. 17? Naomi looked at him with new respect. That's real engineering, Tyler. That's not giving up until you solve the problem. Tyler smiled, but then his expression grew more serious. Naomi, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Louis is scared about racing with me? Naomi sat back on her heels, considering how to answer honestly. Yes, she said finally. He's terrified. Tyler's face fell slightly. But not for the reason you think, Naomi added quickly. He's not scared of failing at driving. He's scared of letting you down, of being one more person who makes you a promise they can't keep. And that's what keeps him up at night. That's what makes him cry during training. He cares about you so much that the thought of disappointing you breaks his heart. Tyler was quiet for a moment, processing this. I wouldn't be disappointed. Even if we crash. Even if it goes wrong. Just him trying is enough. I know that, Naomi said gently. And deep down, Louis knows it too. But when you love someone, when you want to be their hero, logic doesn't always help. You just want to be worthy of their faith in you. Is that how you feel about Louis? Tyler asked. The question surprised Naomi. What do you mean? Louis says you're his hero. That you do real work that matters, saving oceans and coral reefs and stuff. He says you make him want to be better. Do you feel like you have to be perfect for him? Naomi thought about it. Sometimes I worry I'm not interesting enough or important enough for someone like Louis. But then I remember that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, being honest, trying your best even when you're scared. Like Louis training at 3 a.m. even though he's crying, Tyler said. Exactly like that. Tyler nodded slowly. Then he looked up at Naomi with eyes that seemed far older than 11. I'm glad you found out about me. Louis has been carrying this alone for too long. Everyone needs someone to share the heavy things with. You're very wise, Tyler. Mom says I had to grow up fast. After Dad died. After the accident. Tyler ran his hand over his remote car. But Louis helped me remember how to be a kid again. How to dream. How to believe in impossible things. What impossible thing do you believe in? Naomi asked. And Tyler looked at her seriously. That someday, I'll design the first Formula One car that anyone can drive. Legs or no legs. That racing will be for everyone. And when that happens, it'll be because Lewis Hamilton believed in a kid in a wheelchair who refused to stop dreaming. Naomi's throat closed with emotion. She reached out and took Tyler's hand. That's not impossible, Tyler. That's inevitable. Because dreamers like you change the world. They sat together in the garage for a while longer, Tyler explaining every detail of his car's design. His passion was infectious, his knowledge impressive. This wasn't just a hobby for him, it was his future, his purpose. The thing that made him want to wake up every morning and keep going despite everything he'd lost. When they came back inside, Louis and Sarah were sitting at the kitchen table looking at papers, training schedules for the exhibition race, safety protocols, insurance documents, all the practical details of making a dream become reality. Everything set? Naomi asked. Louis looked up, and his face was different now. Lighter. The weight he'd been carrying had finally lifted. Almost. 3 weeks until the exhibition. Final equipment checks. Media coordination. Making sure everything's safe. Can I help? Naomi asked. Louis stood and came to her, taking both her hands. You already are helping. Just by knowing. Just by being here. I don't have to pretend anymore. Don't have to carry this alone. You were never alone, Sarah said softly. Tyler and I, we've been here all along. I know, Louis said, but I felt alone in the fear, not alone in the pressure I put on myself. Now, he looked at Naomi. Now I have you, and somehow that makes everything feel possible. Tyler wheeled over. Group hug? They all laughed, but then they did it, all 4 of them in an awkward, beautiful embrace. Louis and Naomi, Sarah and Tyler. 4 people brought together by tragedy and hope, by promises and dreams, by the simple truth that none of us can do hard things alone. Later, as Louis and Naomi prepared to leave, Tyler handed Naomi a drawing. It showed 2 race cars side by side on a track, one labeled Louis, one labeled Tyler. Above them, the words, "Heroes raced together." Thank you, Naomi whispered, carefully folding the drawing. Take care of him, Tyler said quietly, so only she could hear. He acts brave, but he needs someone to remind him it's okay to be scared. I will, Naomi promised. And you take care of yourself. Keep designing. Keep dreaming. The world needs engineers like you. Tyler grinned. Louis says the same thing. Then maybe we're both right. In the car driving back to London, Louis was quiet, peaceful. His hand rested on Naomi's leg, and occasionally he'd squeeze gently, like he needed to reassure himself she was really there. Thank you, he said finally. For what? For not giving up on me. For pushing past my walls. For coming to Silverstone even when I asked you to stay away. He glanced at her. For loving me enough to demand the truth. Always, Naomi said simply. I bought that ring 6 months ago, Louis said suddenly, right after I met Tyler. Something about seeing his courage. His refusal to let circumstances define him, it made me want to build a life with someone who had that same strength. And that's you, Naomi. You dive into dark oceans. You fight for coral reefs no one sees. You don't give up on things that matter. Louis, I'm not proposing right now, he laughed. God knows this isn't the romantic moment I planned. But I want you to know, that ring isn't a loose end. It's a promise. When this race is over, when Tyler and I cross that finish line together, I'm going to ask you properly, with flowers and everything. I don't need flowers, Naomi said, tears in her eyes. I know, but I want to give them to you anyway. They drove in comfortable silence, the English countryside rolling past. Everything felt different now, lighter, like a storm had finally passed and the sun was breaking through. 3 weeks, Naomi said. 3 weeks, Louis confirmed. And then we race, Tyler and me, together. You're going to be amazing, Naomi said. We're going to be amazing, Louis corrected. All of us. Together. And for the first time in months, Naomi believed him. They weren't alone anymore. None of them were. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Louis divided his time between official team commitments and secret training sessions for the exhibition race. But now, instead of suffering alone at 3 a.m., he invited Naomi to watch. She'd wake to find him already in the gym, but now he'd smile when she appeared in the doorway instead of freezing with shame. Watch this, he'd say, climbing into the racing simulator he'd had installed. I'm getting better at the hand controls. And he was. Day by day, or lap by lap, Louis was rewiring decades of muscle memory. His times with hand controls were getting closer to his times with traditional pedals. Not quite there yet, but closer. You're doing great, Naomi would tell him during breaks. Not great enough, Louis would reply, but without the desperate edge his voice used to carry. But I'm getting there. They video-called Tyler most evenings. The boy would show them adjustments he'd made to his remote car. Louis would share data from his training sessions. They'd talk strategy, racing lines, what to do if something went wrong. Remember, Tyler would say seriously, we're not racing to win. We're racing to show it's possible. When did you get so wise? Louis would tease. Since I met you, Tyler would reply with perfect sincerity. 2 weeks before the exhibition, Louis had a breakthrough. Or Naomi was in the gym, working on her laptop while Louis trained. She'd gotten used to the sound of the simulator, the whine of the virtual engine, Louis's breathing, the click of the hand controls. Then, suddenly, silence. Naomi looked up. Louis had stopped the simulator and was staring at his lap times on the screen. His hands covered his mouth. Louis, what's wrong? He turned to her, and she saw tears on his face. But this time, they weren't tears of frustration. I did it, he whispered. Naomi, I finally did it. Did what? Matched my pedal time, using only hand controls. He laughed, a sound of pure disbelief and joy. I actually did it. After all these months, all these failures, I finally... Naomi was across the room in seconds, throwing her arms around him. I knew you would. I knew it. Louis held her tight, his body shaking with relief and happiness. I can do this. I can really do this. I can race with Tyler and not embarrass myself. Not let him down. You were never going to let him down, Naomi said firmly. But I'm so proud of you. They celebrated quietly that night, just the two of them, champagne on the balcony, watching the lights of Monaco shimmer on the water below. Tell me about the first time you met Tyler, Naomi said. The real story, everything you felt. Louis was quiet for a moment, remembering. I was terrified, he admitted. Not of Tyler, of saying the wrong thing, of being just another celebrity who shows up, takes a photo, and disappears. I didn't want to be that person. What happened? Sarah let me into their home. Tyler was in his room. She warned me he might not talk much. He was still struggling with depression. I was still angry at the world. I knocked on his door, and this small voice said, "Come in." Louis smiled at the memory. Tyler was sitting by his window, staring outside. He had a notebook in his lap, the one with all his car designs. I asked if I could see, and he just handed it to me without a word. And Naomi, those drawings, they were brilliant, detailed, thoughtful. This kid who'd lost everything was still creating, still dreaming. What did you say to him? I asked if he'd ever thought about becoming an engineer. He looked at me like I was crazy, said engineers need to walk, need to get around factories and racetracks. I told him that was nonsense. Engineers need brains and creativity. He had both. Louis paused. Then I asked if he'd help me with a project. Design a car that anyone could drive. I'd make racing accessible. And that's when he started talking? Not right away, but he asked one question. Do you really think I could do that? And I said, I don't think it. I know it. That's when I saw something change in his eyes, like a light turning back on. Naomi rested her head on Louis's shoulder. That's when you made the promise? Not that day, but a few visits later, yes. Tyler asked if I thought wheelchairs made people less brave. I told him no, often the opposite. Then he asked if I'd prove it. If I'd show him that limitations only exist if you accept them. Louis set down his champagne. How could I say no to that? How could I meet this incredible kid and not try to give him hope? You couldn't, Naomi said, because that's who you are. 1 week before the exhibition, they all met at the specially prepared track where the race would happen. It was a small circuit outside London, usually used for karting and club racing. But for this day, it had been transformed. Adaptive equipment lined the garage. Media crews set up cameras. The exhibition had attracted international attention. 2 racing cars sat side by side, both modified with hand controls. 1 full-size car for Louis, 1 smaller, but still powerful car for Tyler. Tyler arrived with Sarah, and the moment he saw his car, he went silent. Just stared at it with his mouth open. Is that? He finally managed. Your design, Louis said, kneeling beside the wheelchair. Every specification you drew. Every modification you imagined. We built it exactly to your vision. Tyler wheeled closer, running his hands over the car's sleek body. It's real. Tuck, it's actually real. You made it real, Louis said. You dreamed it, designed it, refused to let anyone tell you it was impossible. We just helped build what you imagined. They spent the day testing. Lewis drove his adapted car while engineers monitored everything. Then it was Tyler's turn. He was lifted carefully into his car, strapped in with special harnesses, his hands positioned on the controls. "Ready?" Lewis asked through the radio. Tyler's voice came back, small but determined. "Ready." Watching Tyler drive for the first time was magical. He was cautious at first, feeling out the controls, learning how the car responded. But lap by lap, he grew more confident. His lines improved. His speed increased. By the end of the session, Tyler was grinning so wide, his face looked like it might split in half. "Lewis, did you see? Did you see how fast I was?" "I saw," Lewis laughed. "You're a natural, Tyler. An absolute natural." That evening, after Tyler and Sarah went home, Lewis and Naomi sat in the empty garage. The cars sat silent now, waiting for race day. "Nervous?" Naomi asked. "Terrified," Lewis admitted. "But good terrified. Not the bad kind I was feeling before. This is excitement mixed with fear. The good kind of butterflies. Tyler's going to do great." "I know. That's not what scares me anymore." "Then what?" Lewis thought about it. "I'm scared of what comes after. This exhibition race, it's just the beginning. Tyler wants to make adaptive motorsport a real thing, a legitimate racing series. He's already talking about design improvements, safety features, how to get other kids involved. That's wonderful." "It is. But it means I can't just do this once and walk away. Tyler's counting on me to help make this bigger, to use my platform, my connections, my resources to build something lasting." Lewis looked at Naomi. "That's a commitment. Years of work. Maybe decades. Are you worried you won't have time?" "I'm worried I'll let him down long term. That I'll promise to help and then get distracted by my own career, my own life." Naomi took his hand. "Lewis, you've already proven you can keep promises. Look at what you've done these past 6 months. The training, the visits, the resources you've put into making this happen. You don't do things halfway. I need to make this permanent, though. Create a foundation specifically for adaptive motorsport. Fund research. Build facilities. Train coaches." He paused. "I was thinking, once we're married, I'd want you involved. Your expertise in sustainable design, conservation. We could build racing facilities that are environmentally responsible. Show that motorsport can evolve, be inclusive, and sustainable." Naomi's heart skipped. "Once we're married?" Lewis smiled. "I said after the race, I'd ask properly. I'm just planning ahead." "You're very confident I'll say yes." "I'm hopeful," Lewis corrected. Desperately, completely hopeful. Race day arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, mild temperatures, light wind. The track filled with spectators. Not a huge crowd, but enough. Media from around the world had come to cover this historic moment. Tyler arrived early, wearing a custom racing suit in Mercedes colors with his name embroidered on it. His face glowed with excitement and nerves. "Can't believe it's actually happening," he said when Lewis greeted him. "Believe it," Lewis said. "Today, we make history. Together." In the garage, the pre-race routine was carefully choreographed. Tyler was lifted into his car first, engineers double-checking every strap, every connection. His hand controls were tested 3 times. Safety systems verified. Lewis climbed into his car, going through his own checks. But every few seconds, he'd look over at Tyler, making sure the boy was okay. "Tyler, radio check," Lewis said. "I hear you loud and clear, Lewis. Remember what we practiced. Smooth inputs. Don't rush. This isn't about speed. It's about finishing together." "I remember." "Lewis?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Lewis's throat tightened. "You did the hard part, mate. You chose to keep going. I just showed up." Sarah stood at the edge of the garage, tears already streaming down her face. Naomi stood beside her, holding her hand. "He's going to be amazing," Naomi said. "They both are," Sarah replied. The announcer's voice boomed across the track. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first-ever adaptive motorsport exhibition race. Today, 7-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton and 11-year-old Tyler Winters will race side by side, both using hand controls only, proving that the future of racing has no limitations." The crowd cheered. Camera flashes filled the air. "Drivers, start your engines!" The sound was glorious. 2 engines roaring to life simultaneously. Lewis's car rumbled with power. Tyler's car, smaller but equally impressive, sang its own mechanical song. And they rolled out to the starting line, side by side. Champion and dreamer, teacher and student. 2 drivers separated by decades of experience, but united by a single truth. Courage has no prerequisites. "Ready, Tyler?" Lewis asked over the radio. "Ready." Tyler's voice was steady now, confident. "Then let's show them what we can do." The starting lights began their sequence. Red, 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 green. They launched together, hand controls working perfectly. The crowd erupted as both cars accelerated down the straight. This wasn't about one driver beating another. This was about 2 drivers proving that racing belonged to everyone. Lap 1, they stayed side by side. Lewis could have pulled ahead easily, but that wasn't the point. Tyler kept his line beautifully, his inputs smooth and controlled. "Perfect, Tyler. Your racing line is perfect." "I learned from the best." Lap 2, they navigated the first corner together. Wheel to wheel, perfectly synchronized. The crowd was on its feet, cheering every moment. Naomi watched the screens, tears flowing freely. This was what Lewis had been crying about at 3 a.m. This moment, this perfect, beautiful moment of a promise kept. Lap 3, Tyler's confidence grew. He pushed a little harder, his car pulling slightly ahead into one corner. Lewis let him lead for a moment before catching back up. "Showing off now," Lewis teased over the radio. Tyler's laugh came through clearly. "Maybe a little." Sarah was sobbing openly now, her hands clasped in prayer or gratitude, or both. Her son, her beautiful, brave son, was racing, really racing. Living a dream that had seemed impossible 18 months ago when he'd stopped speaking, stopped hoping, stopped believing the world held anything good for him anymore. Lap 4, the penultimate lap, they faced the toughest section of the track. A series of quick direction changes that required precise control. Tyler navigated it beautifully, his hand controls responding to every input with mechanical precision. "Tyler, that was championship-level driving," Lewis said, genuine pride in his voice. "Really? Really? You're a natural, mate. An absolute natural." Final lap. The crowd knew what was coming. Everyone watching understood that this wasn't about who crossed the line first. It was about crossing it together. They came through the last corner side by side. Down the straight, engines screaming, 2 cars perfectly aligned. On the finish line approached. Lewis glanced right, saw Tyler's helmet, saw his small hands gripping the controls, saw everything this moment represented. "Together?" Lewis asked. "Together," Tyler confirmed. They crossed the finish line simultaneously. A dead heat. Perfect symmetry. A promise kept. The crowd exploded. Media crews rushed the pit wall. Commentators shouted with excitement. But in their cars, Lewis and Tyler were in their own world. "We did it," Tyler said. his voice thick with emotion. "Lewis, we really did it." "No, mate," Lewis replied, his own voice breaking. "You did it. You never gave up. You kept believing. This is your victory." "It's our victory," Tyler insisted. And he was right. As they rolled back to the garage, the crowd pressed against the barriers, cheering and crying. This wasn't just a race. It was a revolution, a declaration that racing had no barriers except the ones we build in our minds. Lewis climbed out first, pulling off his helmet. Immediately, he went to Tyler's car. Engineers were helping the boy out carefully, and the moment Tyler was back in his wheelchair, Lewis knelt beside him. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Tyler threw his arms around Lewis, and they held each other while cameras flashed, and the world watched two people who had saved each other prove that heroes come in all forms. "Thank you," Tyler whispered. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for not giving up even when it was hard." "Thank you," Lewis whispered back, "for reminding me what really matters, for teaching me that true strength isn't about trophies or records. It's about showing up, being scared, and trying anyway." Sarah reached them, wrapping both of them in her arms. Naomi joined them, and for a moment, the four of them stood together in the center of the garage, while the world celebrated around them. A journalist called out, "Lewis, what does this mean for the future of racing?" Lewis stood, keeping one hand on Tyler's shoulder. "This means racing just got bigger, more inclusive, better. Tyler Winters just proved that wheelchairs don't stop dreams. They just change the path to them. And I'm proud to say that today is just the beginning. We're starting a foundation for adaptive motorsport, building facilities, creating opportunities. Because every kid who dreams of racing deserves a chance to try." "Tyler!" another journalist shouted. "How does it feel?" Tyler wheeled forward slightly, his face glowing with joy. "So it feels like flying, like being free, like anything's possible." He looked up at Lewis. "And it feels like promises kept." The press conference continued, but Naomi watched Lewis, saw how his shoulders had finally relaxed, how his smile reached his eyes, how he looked at Tyler not with worry anymore, but with pride. Later, after the media had left and the track had emptied, Lewis found Naomi standing alone by the pit wall, looking out at the track where history had been made. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself, champion," Lewis laughed. "Tyler's the champion today." "You both are." Naomi turned to face him. "Lewis, what you did, what you've been doing, it's incredible. Not just the racing, everything. The visits, the training, the foundation you're building. You changed that boy's life." "He changed mine," Lewis said. "Meeting Tyler, I making that promise. It gave me purpose beyond racing. Reminded me that legacy isn't about championships. It's about who you help along the way." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box. Naomi's breath caught. "I said I'd wait until after the race," Lewis said, his voice shaking slightly. "I said I'd do this properly with flowers and romance. But standing here, on this track where Tyler and I just made the impossible possible, I realized this is the right moment. Because you've been part of this journey. You found me crying at 3 a.m. You demanded the truth. You met Tyler and Sarah and loved them immediately. You've been my partner through all of it." He opened the box. The ring caught the late afternoon light, sparkling beautifully. "Naomi Chen, will you marry me? Will you help me build this foundation, raise awareness, to change motorsport forever? Will you be my partner in everything? Racing, conservation, making the world better than we found it?" Naomi's tears fell freely. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes. Louis slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed while the sun set over the track where promises were kept and dreams became reality. In the garage, Tyler watched them from his wheelchair. Sarah stood beside him, her arm around his shoulders. "They're happy," Tyler observed. "They are," Sarah agreed. "Good. Louis deserves to be happy. He made me happy. Now someone's making him happy." Tyler smiled. "That's how it should work, right? We all help each other be happy?" "That's exactly how it should work," Sarah said, kissing the top of her son's head. And in that moment, on that track, in that fading light, and four people who'd found each other through tragedy and hope understood a simple truth. None of them were alone anymore. And they never would be again. The engagement ring felt both foreign and perfect on Naomi's finger. That night, after leaving the track, they celebrated quietly at a small Italian restaurant Tyler had chosen. He insisted it had the best pizza in London, and he wasn't wrong. They sat together, Louis and Naomi, Sarah and Tyler, like a family that had found each other against all odds. "So, when's the wedding?" Tyler asked, tomato sauce on his chin. Louis laughed. "We just got engaged 3 hours ago, mate." "I know, but I need to plan. I'm going to be best man, right?" "Tyler," Sarah started, embarrassed. "Actually," Louis interrupted, "I was hoping you'd do me that honor, if you want to." Tyler's eyes went wide. "Really? You mean it?" "I mean it. You're the reason I found the courage to propose, the reason I understand what real bravery looks like. Of course, I want you standing beside me." Tyler looked at Naomi. "Is that okay with you?" "It's perfect," Naomi said, reaching across to wipe the sauce from his chin. "But you have to promise not to cry during the ceremony." "I can't promise that," Tyler said seriously. "I cried during the race. I'll definitely cry at a wedding." They all laughed, and for a moment, everything felt light and easy. Like the hard part was over. Like they'd crossed the finish line together and now could just enjoy the victory. But Naomi knew better. The exhibition race was just the beginning, not the end. Over the next week, the world's response to the Adaptive Motorsport exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. Videos of Louis and Tyler racing side by side went viral. News outlets ran features about Tyler's story. The hashtag Racing Has No Limits trended globally. And with the attention came opportunity. Louis's phone rang constantly with offers. Sponsors wanting to support the Adaptive Motorsport Foundation. Racing organizations asking how to implement similar programs. Parents of disabled children reaching out, hoping for a chance for their kids to experience what Tyler had. "It's overwhelming," Louis admitted one evening. He sat at his desk, buried under emails and proposals. "I want to help everyone, but I don't know how to scale this. How to turn one special day into a real movement." Naomi watched him from the doorway. This was a different kind of pressure than racing, not the fear of failing Tyler specifically, but the weight of representing hope for thousands of children and families. "You need help," Naomi said. "Real help, not just you trying to do everything alone." "I know. I'm meeting with foundation advisors next week, trying to figure out structure, funding, all the practical stuff." "That's not what I meant." Naomi came into the room and sat on the edge of his desk. "You need personal help. Someone who understands organization, systems, sustainability. Someone who can help you build something that lasts beyond your racing career." Louis looked up at her. "Are you offering?" "I'm offering to be your partner. Really be your partner. Not just in our personal life, but in this too." She took a breath. "My research grant ends in 3 months. I was planning to apply for renewal, but..." What if I didn't? What if I brought my expertise to your foundation instead? Naomi, I can't ask you to give up your career. You're not asking, I'm offering. She slid off the desk and knelt beside his chair, taking his hands. Louis, I've spent years studying how to restore damaged ecosystems, how to rebuild coral reefs one polyp at a time. This foundation? It's the same work. Rebuilding hope, restoring dreams, creating sustainable systems that help people thrive. Louis stared at her. You really see it that way? I do. And honestly, working with you, with Tyler, building something this meaningful, it feels more important than any research paper I could publish. This is applied science, real-world impact. Isn't that what we both want? To make a difference that matters? Louis pulled her into his lap, holding her tight. Are you sure? Your ocean work is important. I don't want you to have regrets. The ocean will still be there, Naomi said. Other scientists can continue that research. But this foundation, this moment, it needs us now. Both of us. Together. Together, Louis repeated, and Naomi heard the relief in his voice. He'd been trying to carry this new dream alone, just like he'd tried to carry the promise to Tyler alone. When did you become the brave one? I learned from the best, Naomi smiled, echoing Tyler's words from the race. They spent the next 2 weeks planning, not just the wedding, that could wait, but the foundation. They brought in experts on nonprofit management, adaptive sports technology, educational program development. They secured major sponsors. They identified facilities that could be converted into adaptive racing centers. And they brought Tyler into every conversation. This is your vision, Louis told him during one planning meeting. We're just helping build it, so you get a say in everything. Tyler took his role seriously. He attended meetings via video call, Sarah beside him. He asked intelligent questions about safety protocols, equipment standards, coach training. He sketched designs for adaptive carts that could be used in beginner programs. We should have different levels, Tyler suggested during one session. Like, some kids might just want to try driving once. Others might want to compete seriously. We need programs for both. Recreational and competitive tracks, Naomi wrote down. That's brilliant, Tyler. And we need scholarships, Tyler continued. My mom couldn't have afforded this without Louis. Most families can't. And so we need to make sure money isn't a barrier. Louis and Naomi exchanged glances. Tyler's compassion, his understanding that his opportunity shouldn't be unique, it humbled them both. Full scholarship program, Louis agreed. No kid gets left out because of cost. Ever. 1 month after the exhibition race, they held a press conference to officially launch the Lewis Hamilton Foundation for Adaptive Motorsport. Tyler was there, sitting beside Louis at the table, looking small but proud in his suit and tie. Journalists filled the room. Cameras flashed constantly. But when the questions started, Tyler handled them with remarkable poise. Tyler, do you see yourself as a pioneer in adaptive racing? Tyler thought about it. I'm just a kid who loves racing. But if other kids see me and think, maybe I can do that too, then yeah, I guess that's important. Everyone deserves a chance to chase their dreams. What would you say to parents of disabled children watching this? I'd say, don't let anyone tell your kids what they can't do. Let them dream. Let them try. They might surprise you. Tyler glanced at his mother. My mom never stopped believing in me, even when I stopped believing in myself. That's what every kid needs. Someone who won't give up on them. Sarah was crying quietly, trying to hide it behind her hand. Louis, how has this experience changed you? Another journalist asked. Louis looked at Tyler, then at Naomi. It's taught me that some victories matter more than championships, that using your platform to create opportunities for others is more fulfilling than any trophy, or that real courage isn't about speed, it's about persistence in the face of obstacles. He put his hand on Tyler's shoulder. This young man taught me that, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the faith he placed in me. The press conference ended with a surprise. Tyler unveiled his latest design, a blueprint for a fully accessible racing facility. Not just adapted equipment, but the entire environment designed for wheelchair users. Wide pathways, adjustable workstations, viewing areas at wheelchair height. I don't want disabled people to fit into racing, Tyler explained. I want racing to be built for everyone from the start. That's the future. The journalists gave him a standing ovation. Afterward, in a quiet room away from the cameras, the four of them sat together. Tyler was exhausted, but happy. Sarah looked proud but worried, a mother watching her son step into a spotlight that could be harsh. "You were perfect out there," Naomi told Tyler. "I was so nervous," Tyler admitted. "But then I remembered what Lewis said before the race, that being nervous means you care, that it's okay to be scared as long as you don't let it stop you." "You're going to be doing a lot of public speaking," Lewis said gently. "Are you okay with that? We can hire someone else to be the foundation's face if it's too much." Tyler shook his head firmly. "No, this needs to be someone like me. Someone who actually uses a wheelchair, who actually understands. I can do it. I want to do it." "Then we'll be right beside you," Naomi said. "Every step, every speech, every event. You're not doing this alone." "None of us are," Sarah added quietly. See, she looked at Lewis and Naomi. "I never thanked you properly. For what you've done for Tyler. For us. You gave me my son back. The boy who laughs and dreams and believes in himself again. I don't know how to repay that." "You don't need to repay anything," Lewis said. "Tyler gave me purpose. He reminded me why I started racing in the first place. Because it brought joy. Because it made me believe I could do extraordinary things. He gave that back to me when I was starting to lose it." Tyler yawned hugely, and they all laughed. "Someone needs a nap," Sarah said, ruffling his hair. "I'm not 5, Mum," Tyler protested, but he was clearly exhausted. As Sarah prepared to take Tyler home, the boy wheeled over to Naomi. "Can I ask you something? In private?" Naomi glanced at Lewis, who nodded. She followed Tyler to a corner of the room. "What's up?" she asked, kneeling to his level. Tyler fidgeted with his hands. "When you and Lewis get married, and you start the foundation work, you're not going to forget about me, right?" Naomi's heart broke a little. "Tyler, no, never. Why would you think that?" "Because Lewis is famous. The foundation will get big. You'll meet lots of other kids who need help. Kids who might be cooler or more talented than me." Tyler's voice got smaller. "What if I was just the beginning? What if you don't need me anymore?" Naomi took both his hands. "Tyler Winters, listen to me. You're not just the beginning. You're the heart. This entire foundation exists because Lewis met you and you had the courage to dream. Every kid we help, every program we build, every life we change, it's all because of you." "Really? Really? And more than that? On your family now? Not because of the foundation, because we love you. Lewis and I both. You're stuck with us forever, whether you like it or not." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "I like it." "Good. Because you're going to be our best man. And after the wedding, you're going to help us make this foundation amazing. And when we have kids someday, they're going to call you Uncle Tyler and drive you crazy." Naomi smiled. "You're not getting rid of us. Ever." Tyler hugged her tight. "Thank you, Naomi, for loving Louis, for loving me too." "Easiest thing I've ever done," Naomi whispered. That night, back in Monaco, Louis and Naomi sat on their balcony. The engagement ring caught the moonlight on Naomi's finger. Inside, wedding planning magazines sat unopened on the coffee table. "We should probably look at those," Naomi said, gesturing to the magazines. "Tomorrow," Louis replied. "Tonight, I just want to sit here with you and feel grateful." "Grateful for what?" "For you, for Tyler, for second chances." Louis turned to look at her. "A year ago, my life was racing. That was it. Racing and more racing. I thought that was enough. That success meant more wins, more championships, more records. And now? Now I know success means Tyler's face when he crossed that finish line. It means building something that helps people. It means sitting on this balcony with you, planning a future that's about more than just me." He took her hand. "You saved me, Naomi. You found me breaking down at 3 a.m. and refused to let me suffer alone. You demanded I trust you with my fears. You loved me through the mess. You would have done the same for me," Naomi said. "I hope so. But you did it first. You were braver than me." "We take turns being brave," Naomi said. "That's how partnerships work. When you're scared, I'm strong. When I'm scared, you're strong. Together, we're enough." "Together, we're enough," Louis repeated. "I like that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the Mediterranean under moonlight. Two people who'd found each other, found purpose, found a boy who needed heroes, and became heroes by refusing to let him down. "Louis," Naomi said after a while. "Yeah?" "Thank you for being the kind of man who cries at 3 a.m. over keeping promises to an 11-year-old. Thank you for caring so much it tears you apart. Thank you for showing me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and trying anyway." Louis's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Thank you for seeing that, and for not running when you found me at my lowest. For staying." "Always staying," Naomi promised. "Through every race, every challenge, every 3 a.m. breakdown. I'm not going anywhere." "Neither am I," Louis said. "We're in this together now, forever." "Forever," Naomi agreed. And in that moment, under the stars, they both understood something profound. The promise Louis made to Tyler had changed everything. Not just Tyler's life, but their own. It had shown them what mattered, what love looked like in action, what it meant to be worthy of someone's faith. Tyler had asked if Louis could still be brave from a wheelchair. Louis had proven yes. But in the process, Tyler had proven something too. That asking for help is its own form of courage. That believing in someone is its own form of strength. That being vulnerable enough to need someone is what makes us human. They'd all saved each other, really. Tyler saved Louis from a life defined only by racing. Louis saved Tyler from a life defined only by loss. Naomi saved Louis from carrying his fears alone. And Louis saved Naomi from thinking her work only mattered in the ocean. Together, they'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. A foundation, a family, a future. And they were just getting started. 3 months later, the foundation held its first official adaptive racing program. 20 children, all with different physical challenges, gathered at the newly renovated facility outside London. Wheelchairs, prosthetics, various mobility aids, every child arrived with their own story, their own struggles, their own dreams. Tyler was there, of course. But now he wasn't just a participant, he was a mentor. "Nervous?" Louis asked him that morning as they set up. "Terrified," Tyler admitted. "What if they don't like me? What if I say the wrong thing? Then you'll be human, Lewis said. Just be yourself. That's all anyone needs. Naomi watched from the garage as the children arrived. Some looked excited. Others looked scared. A few looked angry. That particular fury that comes from a world that hasn't been built for you. That makes you fight for every ordinary moment. One girl, maybe 13, wheeled in with her arms crossed. Her name was Jasmine, and her intake form said she'd lost her legs in a house fire 2 years ago. She looked around the facility with skepticism etched on her face. "This is stupid," Jasmine announced to no one in particular. "Racing is for people who can walk." Tyler wheeled over to her. "I used to think that too." "Yeah?" Jasmine challenged. "And what changed your mind?" "I tried it anyway," Tyler said simply. "Even though I was scared, even though I thought I'd fail. Want to know what happened?" "What?" Tyler grinned. "I was right. I did fail, like, a lot. My first time in the simulator, I crashed within 30 seconds. But then, I tried again, and again, and eventually, I raced against Lewis Hamilton on a real track, and we crossed the finish line together." Jasmine's eyes widened. "You raced against Lewis Hamilton?" "With him," Tyler corrected. "Not against. That's the point. This isn't about being the fastest. It's about proving you can do hard things. Not that wheelchairs don't stop you. They just change how you get there." Something shifted in Jasmine's expression. Not quite belief, but maybe the willingness to try. The day was structured carefully. First, classroom sessions about racing basics, safety, hand controls. Then, simulator time. Finally, if the kids felt ready, actual driving time in the adapted karts on a small practice track. Lewis taught the technical aspects, racing lines, braking points, how to feel what the car was doing. Naomi helped with the logistics, making sure every child had what they needed. And Tyler? Tyler did something neither of them could do. He understood their fear in a way no able-bodied person ever could. "It's okay to be scared," Naomi heard Tyler tell a young boy named Marcus, who was crying in the simulator. "I cried my first time too. Actually, and I cried a lot of times, still do sometimes when things are hard." "You do?" Marcus sniffled. "Yeah, but my mom taught me something. Crying doesn't mean you're weak. It means you care enough to be scared. And caring is brave." By lunchtime, Marcus was smiling. By afternoon, he was laughing. The moment that broke Naomi completely came near the end of the day. Jasmine, the skeptical girl, had spent hours in the simulator. Her competitive nature had emerged. She wanted to master this, wanted to prove she could do it. Finally, she was ready for the real kart. Tyler helped her transfer into the adapted seat, showed her the hand controls, explained how to start gently. "What if I crash?" Jasmine asked. "Then you'll crash," Tyler said matter-of-factly. "The kart's designed to be safe. You won't get hurt. And crashes are how you learn what not to do next time." Jasmine took a breath, started the engine, rolled slowly onto the track. Her first lap was cautious, painfully slow, but she completed it. Her second lap was faster, more confident. By her fifth lap, she was flying, taking corners with precision, accelerating on the straights, completely focused. When she finally stopped and climbed out, her face was transformed. The anger was gone. In its place was something that looked like hope. "I want to do this again," she said to Tyler. "Can I come back?" "Every week," Tyler promised. "We're not going anywhere." Jasmine's mother, who'd been watching from the sidelines, approached Naomi with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I haven't seen my daughter smile like that since before the fire. She's been so angry. I'm so lost." But today she looked like herself again. Naomi hugged her. Tyler did this. Louis did this. We're just helping. No, the woman said firmly. You're giving hope. You're showing our children they're not defined by their limitations. That's everything. That evening, after all the families had left, Louis, Naomi, and Tyler sat together in the quiet garage. They were exhausted, but happy. 20 kids today, Louis said. In 3 months, we'll have programs in 5 cities. By next year, maybe 10. We'll need more coaches, Naomi noted. More equipment, more funding. We'll figure it out, Tyler said confidently. We always do, Louis laughed. When did you become the optimistic one? Since you taught me that impossible things are just hard things we haven't done yet, Tyler replied. They sat in comfortable silence, and watching the sun set through the garage's open doors. Outside, the track lay empty, waiting for tomorrow's dreamers. Louis, Tyler said quietly, can I tell you something? Anything, mate. My dad would have liked you. Tyler's voice was soft. He would have liked what we're building here. He always said the world needed more people who helped instead of just watched. Louis's eyes filled with tears. Tyler rarely mentioned his father. The loss was still too raw, too painful. I wish I could have met him, Louis said. Me too. Tyler wiped his eyes. But I think he'd be happy I found you. Found all of this. He wouldn't want me to stop living because he's gone. He'd want me to race, to dream, to help other kids feel brave. Sarah appeared in the doorway. Tyler, sweetheart, we should get home. But before leaving, Tyler wheeled over to Louis and Naomi. Thank you, for today, for all of it. I know I say it a lot, but I mean it every time. We know, Naomi said, kissing the top of his head. Now go get some rest. You were incredible today. After they left, Louis turned to Naomi. We need to set a date. For what? Our wedding. We keep saying someday, but someday needs to become a real day. Louis took her hands. I want to marry you, Naomi. I want to make this official. I want Tyler to actually be our best man, not just theoretically. Naomi smiled. December. Small ceremony. Just the people who matter most. December, Louis agreed. That gives us 2 months to plan. 2 months to panic, you mean? That too. They kissed as the last light faded from the sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. More kids to help, more programs to build, more promises to keep. But tonight, they were just 2 people in love, standing in a garage where dreams came true. The wedding planning consumed the next month. Naomi had thought she'd want something simple, but once she started, she realized she wanted to honor the journey that had brought them here. They chose a small venue near the racing facility, a beautiful garden that had been adapted with wheelchair-accessible pathways. The guest list was intimate. Family, close friends, the Mercedes team, and, of course, Sarah and Tyler. Tyler took his best man duties seriously. He helped Louis write his vows, planned a surprise for the reception, practiced walking, wheeling down the aisle with the rings. I'm more nervous about this than I was about racing, Tyler confessed one afternoon while they practiced. Why? Naomi asked. It's not because this matters more. Racing was about me proving I could do it. But your wedding? This is about Louis starting the most important part of his life. I can't mess it up. Tyler, you couldn't mess this up if you tried, Naomi assured him. Your presence is what matters, not perfection. The night before the wedding, Naomi had trouble sleeping. Not because of cold feet, she'd never been more certain of anything, but because the enormity of what they were building together was overwhelming. Louis found her at 2 a.m., standing in the gym where she'd first found him crying. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. Too much thinking, Naomi admitted. Louis came to stand beside her. They both looked at the treadmill where he'd run until he broke, at the papers scattered everywhere that night, at the evidence of his struggle. "See, this is where it all changed," Louis said. "Where you demanded the truth. Where I stopped carrying everything alone." "Best decision I ever made," Naomi said. "Worst moment was walking in and seeing you cry. Best decision was refusing to let you push me away. I'm glad you're stubborn. I'm glad you're worth being stubborn for." Louis pulled her close. "Tomorrow, I'm going to stand in front of everyone we love and promise to be your partner forever. In the foundation work, in life, in everything. And I'm going to mean every word." "I know you will," Naomi said. "Because you keep your promises. It's what you do." "We keep our promises," Louis corrected. "Together." The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, mild temperatures, golden afternoon light. Naomi wore a simple dress, elegant and classic, nothing too flashy. See, Louis wore a tailored suit in deep navy, and Tyler wore a matching suit, his wheelchair decorated with flowers that matched the bouquets. The ceremony was held in the garden, chairs arranged in a semicircle, leaving wide aisles for wheelchairs. Sarah sat in the front row, already crying before anything had even started. As Naomi walked down the aisle, escorted by her father, she caught Tyler's eye. He was stationed beside Louis, the rings secured carefully in his lap. He gave her a thumbs up, and she almost laughed. The officiant began. Traditional words about love and commitment. But when it came time for vows, Louis and Naomi had written their own. Louis went first. "Naomi, when you found me training alone at 3 a.m., I was at my lowest, terrified of failing someone I'd promised to help, terrified of not being enough. Oh, you could have walked away, could have decided I was too broken, too complicated. But you didn't. You demanded I trust you. You refused to let me suffer alone. You taught me that partnership means sharing burdens, not carrying them solo." His voice cracked, but he continued. "You've helped me build something more meaningful than any championship, a foundation that changes lives, a purpose beyond racing, a future I'm excited about. But more than that, you've shown me what real love looks like. It's not perfect. It's not always easy. But it shows up. It stays. It keeps trying. So I promise you this. I will show up. I will stay. I will keep trying. When you're scared, I'll be strong. When you doubt yourself, I'll believe in you. When you need someone at 3 a.m., I'll be there. Always. Forever. No matter what." Naomi was crying freely now, as she took a breath and began her own vows. "Louis, loving you has taught me courage. Not the courage to race at high speeds or face physical danger, but the courage to be vulnerable, to admit when I'm scared, to ask for help when I need it. Before I met you, I thought strength meant handling everything alone, being independent, never showing weakness. Then I watched you cry while training because you were so afraid of letting down an 11-year-old boy. And I realized that's the truest form of strength. Caring so much that failure breaks you, but trying anyway. You've shown me that the bravest thing we can do is make promises to people who need us, even when we're not sure we can keep them. You've taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about showing up at 3 a.m., and about holding someone when they're breaking and believing in them until they can believe in themselves again. So I promise you this. I will be present. I will believe in you, especially when you can't believe in yourself. I will build this foundation with you, raise awareness, change lives, and when you're scared, because you will be, Because life is hard and dreams are fragile, I'll remind you that you've already done impossible things, that you've already proven you're worthy of every good thing this world has to offer. I love you, Lewis Hamilton, not because you're famous or successful, but because you cry at 3 a.m. over keeping promises, because you care deeply and love fiercely, because you're exactly who Tyler needed you to be, which means you're exactly who I need you to be too. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Even the officiant had to pause to compose himself. "The rings?" he finally managed. Tyler wheeled forward, presenting the rings with such solemnity that several people smiled through their tears. As Lewis and Naomi exchanged rings, Tyler whispered just loud enough for them to hear, "Don't drop them. That's literally my only job." They didn't drop them. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. "You may kiss." Lewis didn't wait for him to finish. He pulled Naomi close and kissed her, while their friends and family cheered and Tyler wolf-whistled from his wheelchair. The reception was perfect. Simple food, heartfelt toasts, dancing under string lights as the sun set. Tyler gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. "I used to think heroes were people who did impossible things," Tyler said, his voice carrying across the quiet crowd. "People who were never scared, never failed, never struggled. But Lewis taught me different. Heroes are people who are terrified and do the hard thing anyway, who make promises they're not sure they can keep, but keep trying, who cry at 3 a.m., but show up at 6 a.m. ready to try again." He looked at Lewis and Naomi. "You two are my heroes, not because you're perfect, because you're real, because you let me see your struggles and your fears and your victories, because you taught me that wheelchairs don't stop dreams, they just change the path. So here's to Lewis and Naomi, to keeping promises, to building foundations that help people, to showing up at 3 a.m., to proving that together, we're always enough." Everyone raised their glasses. To Lewis and Naomi. As the evening wound down, Naomi found herself sitting with Sarah while Lewis danced with Tyler. Lewis moving, Tyler spinning his wheelchair in circles beside him, both of them laughing. "You gave me my son back," Sarah said quietly. "Both of you did. I'll never be able to thank you enough." "Tyler saved Lewis too," Naomi replied. "He gave Lewis purpose beyond racing, showed him what really matters. We should be thanking you for raising such an incredible kid." Sarah smiled. "We're all saving each other, I think. That's what family does." Family. The word settled warm in Naomi's chest. This was her family now. Not just Lewis, but Tyler and Sarah too. All of them connected by promises kept and dreams shared. Later, Lewis and Naomi had their first dance. The song was slow and romantic, and Lewis held her close as they swayed. "Happy?" he murmured. "Is impossibly happy," Naomi replied. "You?" "More than I knew was possible." Lewis pulled back to look at her face. "A year ago, I was alone at 3 a.m., crying over hand controls, terrified of failing Tyler. Now I'm married to my best friend. We've launched a foundation helping hundreds of kids, and I'm happier than I've been in my entire life. All because a boy in a wheelchair asked if you thought he could still be brave," Naomi said. "All because I met Tyler, and because I met you, and because you wouldn't let me give up." They danced quietly, surrounded by people they loved, in a garden designed for everyone. And as the music played and the stars came out, Naomi realized something profound. The story she'd thought she was living. Successful marine biologist, important research, making a difference from a distance. That wasn't her real story at all. Her real story was this: standing beside a man who cried over keeping promises to children, building a foundation that changed lives, being part of a family held together not by blood, but by choice and courage, and the simple refusal to let each other face hard things alone. This was her story, their story, together. And they were just getting started. 5 years later, the early morning light crept through the curtains of the London townhouse Louis and Naomi had bought 2 years ago. It was smaller than the Monaco penthouse, cozier, with a garden that Naomi had filled with sustainable plants and a ramp leading to the front door that they'd installed without needing to, because Tyler visited often enough that it just made sense. Naomi's phone alarm buzzed softly at 5:45 a.m. She reached over to silence it, careful not to wake Louis, but his arm tightened around her waist. "I'm awake," he mumbled into her hair. "You don't have to be. I'm the one doing the video call." "I know, but it's Australia. That's a big moment. I'm not missing it." Naomi smiled and kissed his shoulder. 5 years of marriage, and he still insisted on being part of everything, still showed up even at 5:45 a.m. on a Saturday. They moved quietly to the kitchen. Louis made coffee while Naomi set up her laptop. At exactly 6 a.m. London time, 5 p.m. Sydney time, Tyler's face appeared on the screen. He was 16 now, taller, his face losing its childhood roundness. But his smile was the same, bright and genuine and full of life. "Naomi! Louis! You're there!" "Of course we're here," Naomi said. "You think we'd miss this?" Behind Tyler, they could see the engineering lab at the University of Sydney. Equipment, computer screens, other students moving around. Tyler had been accepted into their accelerated engineering program, the youngest student they'd ever admitted. "Show us," Louis said, leaning into frame. Tyler's grin widened. He turned his laptop to show a large table where a detailed model sat. It was a Formula One car, but unlike any that currently existed. The cockpit was wider, the controls completely adaptable, the seat designed for maximum adjustability. "This is it," Tyler said, his voice trembling with excitement. "My final design for the universal adaptive race car. Every control can be customized for different disabilities. Spinal injuries, amputations, limited mobility. Any driver can use this car with the right configuration." He wheeled around the model, pointing out features. The steering wheel has modular attachment points. Hand controls here. Breath controls here for drivers without arm mobility. The pedals can be disabled entirely or adapted. Even the seat adjusts in 6 directions for comfort and safety. "Tyler, this is incredible," Naomi breathed. 3 race teams have already asked for prototypes," Tyler continued, barely containing his excitement. "Real Formula One teams, wanting to test adaptive technology for future integration. And the Paralympic Committee contacted me. They want to discuss creating an official adaptive motorsport category for the 2032 Games." Louis stood up abruptly, pacing with emotion. "Tyler, do you understand what this means?" "I think so. This means you've done it. Everything we dreamed about 5 years ago when we raced together, you're making it real. Not just one exhibition race, not just local programs, but worldwide, official, legitimate adaptive racing." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "We did it, Louis. Together." "No," Louis said firmly, coming back to the screen. "You did this. Your designs, your vision, your refusal to accept limitations. Naomi and I just helped build the foundation. But you're changing the entire sport." After the call ended, Louis sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Naomi came to stand behind him, rubbing his shoulders. "Proud?" she asked. Overwhelmingly, Lewis said, his voice thick. When I made that promise to Tyler 5 years ago, I was terrified I couldn't keep it, and that I'd failed him. And now, look what he's accomplished. You kept your promise, Naomi said. You showed him that wheelchairs don't stop dreams, and he believed you enough to dream bigger than either of us imagined. Lewis pulled her around to sit on his lap. We did good work, Mrs. Hamilton. We did, Naomi agreed, but the work's not done. She was right. The Lewis Hamilton Foundation for Adaptive Motorsport had grown beyond anything they'd imagined. 42 facilities across 17 countries, over 3,000 children in programs, 15 full-time engineers working on adaptive technology, and a documentary about their work that had been nominated for an Oscar. But with growth came challenges. Later that morning, Naomi sat in her home office, converted from what was supposed to be a guest room, reviewing applications. And they'd just announced a new scholarship program for adaptive athletes wanting to pursue careers in motorsport engineering or race car driving. 500 applications for 20 spots. Each application was a story, a life changed by accident or illness or birth. Dreams that had seemed impossible until children heard about Tyler, about Lewis, about the foundation that said yes when the world said no. Naomi read through them one by one, making notes, trying to be objective, but feeling her heart break with each one. A 12-year-old girl from Brazil who'd lost her legs to bone cancer but designed cart modifications in her hospital bed. A 17-year-old boy from India with cerebral palsy who'd taught himself mechanical engineering through YouTube videos. A 9-year-old from South Africa born without arms who wanted to race using foot controls and had already designed a prototype steering system. How do you choose? How do you tell 480 kids that they'll have to wait, keep dreaming, try again next year? Lewis found her crying at her desk around noon. Hey, he said softly, kneeling beside her chair. What's wrong? There are too many, Naomi said, gesturing at the applications. So many brilliant kids with so much potential, and we can only help 20 of them right now. Then we expand the program, Lewis said simply. With what money? We're already stretched thin. The new facility in Japan cost more than budgeted. The equipment upgrades in Germany. I'll race another season, Lewis interrupted. Naomi looked at him in shock. Lewis had retired from Formula One 2 years ago, right after his 8th World Championship. He'd said he was done, ready to focus entirely on the foundation. Lewis, you retired. You said you were tired of the travel, the pressure. I was tired, Lewis admitted. I am tired, but I'm also a 40-year-old former world champion with name recognition and sponsors who'd pay millions for one more season. If racing one more year means we can help 100 kids instead of 20, that's worth being tired. I won't let you destroy yourself for this, Naomi said firmly. You've already given so much. Lewis took her hands. What destroyed me 5 years ago was carrying the weight alone, being terrified of failing Tyler. But I'm not alone anymore. I have you. I have a team. I have a foundation that's bigger than just me. One more season won't destroy me. It'll fund dreams. They talked for hours, weighing options. Eventually, they decided to call a board meeting for the following week. Let the entire foundation team weigh in on whether Lewis should return to racing. That evening, Sarah and Tyler came for dinner. Tyler was home from Australia for a month before returning for the fall semester. He looked older, more mature, but he still lit up when he saw Lewis and Naomi. Something smells amazing, Tyler said, wheeling into the kitchen. Lewis is cooking, Naomi said. So it's either amazing or we're ordering pizza in an hour. I heard that, Lewis called from where he was attempting to make Thai curry. They ate dinner together, laughing and talking. Tyler told stories about university, his professors, his projects, and the other students who treated him like any other engineering genius rather than the kid in the wheelchair. "There's this girl," Tyler said, blushing slightly. "Emma. She's in my advanced mechanics class. She asked if I wanted to study together." "Study?" Louis teased. "Is that what they're calling it now?" "Louis!" Sarah swatted his arm, but she was smiling. Tyler rolled his eyes, but he was grinning. "She's nice, smart. She actually listens when I explain my designs instead of just nodding politely." "She sounds perfect," Naomi said. "You should invite her to the gala next month." The foundation was hosting its 5th annual fundraising gala in London. It had become a major event. Celebrities, athletes, politicians, all coming together to support adaptive motorsport. "I might," Tyler said, then changed the subject. So, I heard you're thinking about racing again?" Louis and Naomi exchanged glances. "Who told you that?" "No one. I can just read you." Tyler looked at Louis seriously. "If it's about funding, there are other ways. We could approach more corporate sponsors, launch a public campaign. You don't have to race if you don't want to." "What if I want to?" Louis asked. "What if I'm not ready to be done yet?" Tyler studied him. "Then race. But don't race for me. Don't race because you think the foundation needs it. Race because you love it. Because it brings you joy. Otherwise, what's the point?" The wisdom in those words, coming from a 16-year-old, stunned them all into silence. "When did you get so smart?" Sarah asked her son. "I had good teachers," Tyler replied, looking at Louis and Naomi. Later, after dinner, Tyler asked to speak with Louis privately. They went to the garden where Louis had installed a fire pit surrounded by comfortable seating at wheelchair height. "What's on your mind?" Louis asked. Tyler was quiet for a moment, watching the flames. "Do you remember that night before our exhibition race, when you told me you were terrified of failing me?" "I remember. I need to tell you something I never said back then." Tyler turned to face him. "You didn't just teach me about racing or hand controls or adaptive technology. You taught me how to be a man." Louis's throat tightened. "My dad died when I was 10, Tyler continued. "I barely remember him now. The memories are fading. But you've been there for 5 years. Every important moment. When I was struggling with depression, when I gave my first public speech, when I got accepted to university, you've shown up for all of it." "Tyler, I'm not finished." Tyler's voice was firm but gentle. "You've shown me what it means to keep promises, to care about something beyond yourself, to be scared and do the hard thing anyway, to cry when you need to and ask for help when you're struggling. You've taught me that being a man isn't about being tough or independent. It's about being present, being honest, being brave enough to love people deeply." Tears streamed down Louis's face. "I just did what felt right." "I know. That's what made it so powerful." Tyler reached out and took Louis's hand. "So, I want to say thank you. For being the father I needed when mine couldn't be here. For loving me when I was broken and believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For showing up. Oh, always showing up." Louis pulled Tyler into a fierce hug, both of them crying now. "You made it easy to love you," Louis said. "From that first day, when you asked if you could still be brave, you've been teaching me as much as I've taught you." They held each other while the fire crackled and the stars came out above London's light pollution. Inside, Sarah and Naomi watched through the window. "They needed that," Sarah said softly. "They did," Naomi agreed. She put her arm around Sarah's shoulders. "Thank you. For what? For trusting us with him, for letting us be part of his life, for sharing him with us. Sarah wiped her eyes. You didn't take him away. You gave him back to me. The happy, hopeful boy I thought I'd lost. You both did that. The gala arrived with all the chaos and excitement such events bring. The venue was stunning, a historic building that had been completely renovated with accessibility as the primary design principle. Wide doorways, multiple elevators, viewing areas at various heights. Even the stage was ramped. This is what every building should look like, Tyler commented as they arrived. He was right. The space proved that accessibility doesn't mean sacrificing beauty or elegance. It just means thinking about design differently. Tyler brought Emma, who turned out to be lovely, a mechanical engineering student with sharp intelligence and a kind smile. She treated Tyler like any other date, not like a fragile thing to be careful around, which made Naomi like her immediately. The gala featured speeches, a silent auction, video presentations about the foundation's work. But the highlight was the surprise announcement, and Louis took the stage, and the room fell silent. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but more than that, he looked purposeful, like someone who'd found his calling. 5 years ago, Louis began, I met a boy who asked me if wheelchairs stopped people from being brave. I told him no. Then he challenged me to prove it. So we raced together, using adapted cars, showing that limitation is often just a failure of imagination. Photos from that first exhibition race appeared on the screens around the room. Tyler small in his car, Louis beside him, both crossing the finish line together. That race changed my life, Louis continued. It showed me that my real legacy wouldn't be championship trophies. It would be the lives we touched, the dreams we enabled, the barriers we broke down together. He paused, looking at Naomi in the audience. She nodded encouragingly. Tonight, I'm announcing 3 things. First, the foundation is launching a £50 million expansion. 20 new facilities worldwide. Scholarships for 500 young people, and a research division focused on adaptive technology for all sports, not just racing. The room erupted in applause. Second, we're partnering with the FIA to create the first official adaptive motorsport world championship, starting in 2028. Real races, real points, real recognition for drivers of all abilities. More applause. Tyler was crying openly, Emma holding his hand. And third, Louis said, his voice catching slightly, I'm announcing the Tyler Winters Institute for Adaptive Engineering, a fully funded research center at the University of Sydney, where brilliant minds will develop technology to make all of sport accessible to everyone. The room went silent in shock. Then people started standing, applauding, some crying. On the screens, they showed Tyler's face, his expression of complete disbelief and overwhelming emotion. Louis gestured for Tyler to join him on stage. Tyler wheeled up the ramp, still crying, and Louis knelt beside the wheelchair. You asked me 5 years ago if I thought you could still do brave things, Louis said, speaking directly to Tyler, but with the microphone still carrying his words to everyone. I want the whole world to know. Tyler Winters is the bravest person I know. He's designed technology that will change lives. He's inspired thousands of children to keep dreaming. He's shown us all that the only real disability is refusing to try. Tyler couldn't speak, just hugged Louis while the room gave them a standing ovation that lasted 5 full minutes. Later, away from the cameras and crowds, the 4 of them, Louis, Naomi, Tyler, and Sarah, stood together in a quiet corner. An institute with my name, Tyler said, still processing. How is that real? Because you earned it, Naomi said simply. Every design, every presentation, every child you've inspired. You built this with your work, your passion, your refusal to accept the word impossible. But I couldn't have done any of it without you, Tyler protested. Without Louis believing in me, without you helping build the foundation, without Mum never giving up on me. Then we all did it together, Sarah said, pulling her son close. That's how the best things happen. Together. As the gala ended and guests began leaving, one man approached their group. He was older, distinguished, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Mr. Hamilton, Tyler, I'm Dr. James Chen from the Paralympic Committee. I wonder if I could have a word. They talked for half an hour. Dr. Chen explained that the committee had been watching the foundation's work closely. They wanted adaptive racing included in the 2032 Paralympics, but they needed help developing the framework, the rules, the safety standards. We need someone who understands both the sport and the adaptive technology, Dr. Chen said, looking at Tyler. Someone who's lived it, designed for it, advocated for it. We need you, Tyler. Tyler looked at Louis, at Naomi, at his mother. I'm 16. I'm still in university. I don't know if I'm qualified. You're the most qualified person in the world, Dr. Chen interrupted. Because you've done what no one else has. You've proven it's possible. Will you help us? Tyler took a breath, looked at the people who'd believed in him when he'd stopped believing in himself, saw in their faces the same thing he felt, terror and excitement and determination all mixed together. Yes, Tyler said, I'll help you. That night, back at the townhouse, Louis and Naomi finally had a moment alone. They stood in their garden, under the stars, exhausted but happy. We did it, Naomi said. Everything we dreamed 5 years ago, we actually did it. Tyler did it, Louis corrected. We just built the foundation. He built the future. Together, Naomi insisted. All of us, together. Louis pulled her close. Do you remember finding me in the gym at 3 a.m., crying over hand controls, terrified of failing? Every detail, Naomi said. You looked so lost, so scared. I thought my world was ending. It was ending, Louis said. The world where I carried everything alone, where fear controlled me, where I defined myself only by racing, that world needed to end so this one could begin. And this world, Naomi asked? This world has you, has Tyler, has a foundation that changes lives, has purpose and meaning and love. Louis kissed her forehead. This world is everything I didn't know I needed. They stood together in the quiet garden, two people who'd found each other in darkness and built something luminous. Around them, the foundation they'd created continued growing. Programs in 17 countries. Thousands of children learning they could do hard things. Technology being developed that would reshape sport itself. And at the center of it all, one promise kept. A promise made to a boy in a wheelchair who asked if he could still be brave. Louis had said yes, then proven it by being brave himself, by crying at 3 a.m. and trying anyway, by admitting fear and moving forward, by loving deeply enough to risk failure. And in the end, they hadn't failed at all. They'd built something that would outlast all of them, a legacy of hope, a foundation of courage, a family bound not by blood, but by the simple refusal to give up on each other. 5 years ago, Louis had been alone in a gym, crying and training in darkness. Now he stood in a garden with his wife, having just announced an institute named for the boy who'd saved him, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new children to help and new promises to keep. And he wasn't afraid anymore, because he wasn't alone. None of them were. And they never would be again. So now you know the incredible true story of how Lewis Hamilton kept his promise, how Tyler Winters changed the world of racing, and how Naomi Chen discovered that real strength means showing up at 3 a.m. when someone needs you. We want to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. We love hearing from our global family. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, you're helping us spread kindness and hope to people who need it most. Every subscription means more inspiring stories reach more people who might be struggling, who might need to hear that keeping promises matters, that being different doesn't mean being less, and that together we're always enough. And don't go anywhere yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible true story that will move you. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're braver than you think, stronger than you know, and capable of amazing things. See you in the next video.